don't know. I'll ask him to get back.
How's it going?
I have no idea.
If I had my choice between being here or heat and down there, I'd say I'd go down there.
He's a liver.
I've never been to Colleyville.
He does it almost every day. Yeah, just right over here.
Okay, yeah, I got some. Looks like almost every day.
Yeah, I don't know which one, but it's in one of these right over here. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You probably do. You probably do. I do, because aren't like what people do, socialize and whatever. I should pay for it. You know? Gosh, this is from May.
I need a pen. Where is she? Thank you, thank you.
I was like, "Where?" Did it right there.
I don't even know if we put this straw.
Yeah.
Drink.
Good evening, everyone. We are going to call to order the City of Colleyville Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Monday, July 13th. First item of business, we will call roll. Commissioner Moore is absent. Commissioner Said?
Here.
Commissioner Holt? Here. Commissioner Matheson, I'm here. Commissioner Cook?
Here.
Commissioner Bevel?
Here.
Commissioner Bond.
Here.
Thank you so much. And now if I can ask everyone to please stand for the invocation and remain standing afterwards for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Bow your heads with me, please. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for letting us join here this evening. Thank you for allowing us to arrive safely and help us make decisions tonight that are wise and pleasing to you. Thank you for our wonderful city staff and the hard work they put in each and every week. Once again, Father, thank you for letting us join here this evening and grant us knowledge in our decision-making and grant us safe travels as we return home tonight to our families. It is in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we start with the citizen comments and presentations on items that are not on the agenda, we're going to have a little bit of housekeeping here that we have. We're going to have the approval or the review of some of the minutes from past meetings. So what I'd like to do is, first of all, ask everyone if they have any questions on any of the minutes, and these are minutes from November 25th, 2019, November 9th, 2019, May 22nd, May 26th. This is from our work session meeting, 2020. May 26th, our regular meeting, 2020, and June 8th, 2020, our regular meeting. I'm sure everyone's read them. They're in our packet tonight. If anyone has any questions or comments, please state which meeting minutes you're referring to. Okay, having no questions or comments, I'm going to request a motion on the blanket approval or deny, or blanket, request a motion on the group of minutes as a whole, if we could. May I have a motion?
A motion to approve the minutes as a whole.
I'll second.
Thank you. We are voting to approve the minutes for November 25th, 2019, December 9th, 2019, May 26th, 2020, both the work session and the regular meeting, as well as June 8th, 2020. Commissioner Moore is absent, pardon me. Commissioner Said? And a vote aye is in
Aye.
approval. Thank you. Commissioner Moore, or pardon me, Commissioner Holt, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Commissioner Matisse, I vote aye. Commissioner Cook?
Aye.
Commissioner Bevel?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Aye.
Thank you very much. These minutes are approved. Okay, thank you so much. And now we're going to move on to citizen comments and presentations regarding items that are not on the agenda this evening. So if anyone would like to come forward and speak on items that are not on our agenda, please do so now. And I'll remind you that anyone who wishes to come forward now or to speak on an item that is part of the public hearing and is part of the agenda, to please fill out a speaker card. I have some of these here now that people have completed, so just as a reminder. So seeing that no one is coming forward, I'm going to move on to the next item of the agenda. So for our first public hearing agenda items, we have number 3A, consideration for a special use permit for a daycare center located on lots 9R and 10R, Block 1 of the Winding Creek Addition, located at 6412 and 6416 Colleyville Boulevard. This is case number ZC20 through -0015.
Good evening, Commission. I'm down here.
Oh, I can't hear you.
No.
Okay, yeah.
No.
So sorry, I was looking
Different
for you.
setup. Can you,
We're all in different places. Thank you.
it was working. Can you hear me? I can talk really loud. Okay, let's go.
I always need a microphone. I have a very soft voice.
Okay, so this is an aerial map showing the two lots. And it is zoned PUDC, Plan Unit Development Commercial. It is in the Winding Creek Development, which is an office park, and it also has the Montclair Wedding Venue. Commercial and retail uses are permitted on the properties adjacent to Colleyville Boulevard. Here is our future land use map that does indicate it to be commercial in use. And this is showing the two pieces of land there. Before you tonight is an SUP to allow for a daycare center. Because it has the planned unit development commercial zoning, it has its own specific regulations. And so these are the regulations that would apply in this case for the daycare. And this is directly from the Land Development Code that shows that an SUP would be required for it to be there. I'm going to go through real quick and show, because a couple months back, this case was discussed, and this was the previous zoning exhibit. And on this exhibit, you can see that the building is pushed more towards the front of the property, and then to the back there and then to the south are where the play areas were for the daycare. And in the revised site plan, the building is now pushed to the back with a 25-foot setback, And then the play areas have been moved to the front of the building and then again on the south side there. I'm going to go through the proposed changes, kind of all the things that are different from what was proposed before. So the building location has been shifted to the west with that setback from the property line of 25 feet. Two of the playgrounds previously were located behind the building to the west. They're now on the east side or the front of the building. And then the previous tree preservation plan had indicated 9 trees were being removed due to the shifting of the building. 2 additional trees are proposed to be removed for a total of 11 trees. And then they did include a photometric plan with this application. And with the current proposal, it indicates the plan development would be in compliance with the PUDC ordinance in that the foot candles at the property lines do not exceed 0.5 foot candles. And these are the building elevations here. They are using a combination of stucco and stone on the elevations. You can kind of see it better here in the colored renderings. And then this is the landscape plan that goes into detail about the types of plantings. It does require a 15-foot landscape buffer along that western boundary. And that buffer does contain 43 wax myrtles planted on 15-foot centers. So in addition to other plantings and landscapings around the building there. There is an existing masonry screening wall to the west. And then these are the site drainage and grading plan for the development. This was the previous tree preservation plan. In yellow, the yellow dots are the ones to be removed for the footprint of the building. And then you can kind of see, because of the shifting of the building, the 2 extra trees there need to be removed. And here's the photometric plan showing how the building will be lit. And then we also included, because there were some questions before about the creme de la creme, which is a little bit further down the street there on Highway 26. This was their site plan from 1999. They have 3.48 acres of land. This is 1.47 acres. And this is just a comparison of the hours of operation with creme de la creme. So the hours of operation is the actually next item on our agenda to amend the PUD for the hours, but they want to have the same hours of operation. Their building size is a little bit more than double in size from this application, and the number of students here is 331, which is a bigger.
I'm sorry, can you go back to that previous one if you don't mind? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
We did receive, staff did receive 2 letters in opposition, which were included in the commission's packet. Staff is recommending approval of the special use permit. The zoning change is generally consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, and the request is consistent with the land uses located on the subject property in the governing zoning district.
Okay, all right. Thank you. At this point, if the applicant's here, I would like to invite you forward to come speak on this item, and I will remind you to please state your name and address for the public record.
Stephen Brown, 6612 Josephine Street, Plano, Texas. I'm Butcher and Brown Development. I would be the owner, developer, and general contractor of the project. So I appreciate your time this evening. I feel like I've been here a couple times before. Really spent a lot of time addressing the questions and comments from our previous meeting. One thing about safety, which we'll get into, as well as the locations of the playground in regards to noise in conjunction with the neighbor's property. So, first of all, per the P&Z's request, the new site plan was designed moving the playgrounds from the back side of the building, which is the west side, to the front, which is the east, and also a playground to the south. By doing so, it really reduces down the noise issue. And when you look at the playgrounds at the front of the building, this is similar to an existing Primrose, which is on Hall Johnson, which we have some photos of that. The entire property meets all code requirements, so we're not asking for any variances off existing code. The building is 25 feet from the back property line, which she outlined just a second ago. One of the comments before were the west side doors exiting the building and the possibility of additional noise. Those doors will now be used for emergency purposes only, so the children will flow to the east door and the south side of the building in order to get to the playgrounds. Again, site lighting meets code requirements from the property line. That was a question previous. Tree preservation meets all code and has been approved by the arborist, which we got approval on that. Trees removed are not heritage trees. There was a question on that. Heritage has to do with size and not species. Playgrounds are grass. There was a question on what were the materials on the playground. The playgrounds are actually grass except for within the fall zone of the playground equipment, which I'll show in just a second. And that's usually a turf or a mulch from a safety perspective. There are no splash pads involved in the project. A lot of questions were in regard to the playground hours. The playground hours are from 9 to 11:30 in the morning time, not any earlier than 9. The building opens at 6:30, but no children will be on the playground before 9 a.m. And in the afternoons, it's 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Same concept, children will not be on the playground after 5. So those are the designated time frames. From a safety perspective, there are faculty on all the playgrounds at any given time children are present on the playground. Again, the travel path to the playgrounds are through the east and south side doors. And something that is not shown, I don't think, a portion of the west and southwest playground corner will have a solid vinyl fence to help with noise. I'm going to go to that photo. I don't know how to blow this up, but this area right here, there's that masonry wall covers the entire property line, but on this playground, we're going to add a vinyl fence right here and there to help reduce the noise on the west and the south side of the property as well. The rest of the fencing, we would prefer to have ornamental metal fencing, which helps a little bit of the airflow through the property. See here, all playgrounds are fenced with gate alarms. This is per child care code, and I've got some examples of this. This is an example of exiting the playground. You'll see the red bar. It's an alarm push bar. So if somebody exits the playground, the alarm's going to go off. Faculty are on the playground, and so they can assist with any issues with that's concerned. On the opposite side of that door, there's no door hardware for someone to enter from the outside of the playground property. All playgrounds are contained within a fence. So there was a question before about the tricycle track. All of that is contained within the fence, and we're proposing a 6-foot fence. So it's not very easy to get over, whether you're inside the playground or outside. The school age children is 6 to 12 years old. That's the after school and summertime service that the facility is providing. See here, again, children are allowed in the building from 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., again, designated the hours of operation. A question on special events. I know that some of you guys have had children at Creme de la Creme or Primrose, and there's special events. And I confirmed with Kitty Academy, there's really only 2 or 3 special events a year. And they're scheduled either to stagger those families during normal business hours, so parking is readily available, or they'll actually use some kind of off-site parking, maybe in conjunction with the event center next to us or down the road. But the plan is to keep it within normal business hours, and so that the parking lot is sufficient in order to take care of everyone. There's no late hours of operation. And safety, from a safety perspective, in conjunction with the gates and the fencing and things of that nature, all this has to meet child state licensing. And I've got a document here. The licensing inspection is a 222-page document, not only handling safety, but health, food, a whole lot of different things that go into and belt and suspenders as far as inspection of the facility, so that all the children are safe all the time from outside influence or anything of that nature. Traffic. There were some questions on the traffic, which I'll show too, but there's minimal to no impact with the adjacent neighborhood. I'm going to go to that right here. You can see this is the facility. To get to Kingston is 0.2 miles, and then there's a light here to help control traffic. So if the neighbors are exiting east on Tinker, they actually have a light to go either left or right to assist. This facility also has a horseshoe-type internal drive. So here's Colleyville Boulevard with this facility down here. There's actually two exit points for the traffic to go north and south on either one of these. And again, from a safety perspective, this is pretty unique in the fact that the traffic is contained within the development itself. So that's going to help, with the children possibly in the parking lot as well. If you look in conjunction to the Primrose that's in the local area on Hall Johnson, as soon as you pull off Hall Johnson, the playground is immediately right there. So that's, again, our facility is buried within the development, albeit the playground is up front. This has a similar design as well, and you can see from a street perspective. So we're not asking for anything that's out of the norm or unusual with our overall design. Let's see here. There's a retaining wall on the west side of the property. So you have the 8-foot masonry wall, and then our lot is actually lower by 3 feet. So we need a retaining wall that's going to be up against the 8-foot wall. So not only is that 8-foot wall in place, but we're actually going to be sunk down 3 additional feet. So you're looking like that wall is really 11 feet to help with noise. Question on drainage as well. The drainage flows from the west to the east. So our water flow will actually flow towards the creek to the east and not towards the adjacent property on the western side. She discussed building materials a moment ago, and we meet the material code within the PUD. There was a question on different materials. Usually these buildings have a rock water table with either stucco, EIFS, or brick, and those materials, I believe, meet all city and SUP or PUD codes, and so we have some flexibility on that, but I don't think we have any zone or coding issues from that perspective. It just so happens that the Kitty Academy in Frisco actually has playgrounds on the front, so this would kind of give you a generic perspective of how it would look. This fence is actually 5 feet. We're proposing a 6-foot tall fence, so a little bit higher than what you see presently here. We discussed the gates, traffic, and all that. I tried to address as many of the questions and concerns to help accommodate the project with the neighbors, with also the ability to develop this property. I think we had a historical background. It was zoned daycare as far back as 2000, and then went to an SUP in 2009, along with all other commercial locations for preschool within Colleyville, which is not unusual. We see it across the country with a special use or a conditional use permit, to get an extra set of eyes and ears from a safety perspective, as well as how it's going to work in the neighborhood. As far as the neighbors are concerned, there would be a parking lot no matter what this facility would be. And so, again, we're meeting the lighting perspective from that, putting the playgrounds on the front of the building, which is nearly 30 feet high, to help reduce down the noise of the playgrounds. So I hope you guys can appreciate we've tried to address as many of the challenges possible in order to make this project possible. Any questions?
We're going to have to, any questions that we have, we're going to have to address after
Okay.
the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and with that, I'd like to open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Okay, I'd like to invite individuals that would like to come forward to speak on this item to do so. I do have a few speaker cards. First card I see is Frey Webster, if you'd like to come forward to speak on this item. And if I can remind you to please state your name and address for the public record.
Good evening. My name is Frey Webster. I live at 112 Quail Run here in Colleyville. Been a resident for 22 years. So appreciate everyone coming out tonight. We've heard this now a couple of times, and I think Steve and his team has worked real hard on addressing all of your concerns. I am currently the owner and developer of that land. When we purchased the land, we understood that through an SUP, a daycare could possibly be there with, as long as it met codes. And so we think this is a really good fit. We think it's a good fit for the city of Colleyville, brings a service to the community that gives people options. It fits really well on this piece of property and in this development. It will complement the wedding chapel that is there, and it will continue to enhance what we've done in that development as we've built a real nice bridge and cleaned up that creek that was been an eyesore for many years. And when we bought it, it was a dumping ground. We had tremendous loads of trash that we cleaned up and cleaned out of there because it had been the property had been so abused over the years. So we're real happy to bring that forward, and we think this is a great fit. And I appreciate your time and all the effort you've put in and the input, and I know that they've worked hard. And so I just wanted to go on record to be for this and tell you how much we appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Bradley Hildreth would like to speak in opposition of this item. I know I'm being repetitive, but if you can please state your name and address for the public record, I would appreciate it.
My name is Brad Hildreth. I live at 6409 Kingston, and I'm here to talk about the proposed daycare going in here. Some of the things that they're showing us right now, I'm having a little bit of a hard time understanding. Can you help me get back to the attention? Did you show it up here? Back up?
I'm going to ask the staff if they can please put a map of the location of your property in relation to where the applicant's land is, if we have that available.
I believe he is, with the last three digits, 141.
Okay, thank you.
Because I believe the proposed back corner where the daycare is going is about halfway through his property, and then it transitions to the adjacent property to the south,
Okay,
which is a separate ownership.
okay, thank you. I'm sorry. So I know you wanted something else up there, but I just wanted to get an idea of,
That's fine. He's right. The fence does come down into my property, so when you go out in the backyard and look, I have a fence for half the property that is put in, is it 11 feet total height? 10. 8. Okay, so we have that concrete wall going down. Then we have a chain link going down for the remainder of the homes that live right there. My concern is so we're putting a fence in right here, but you're talking about a setback. Is that a setback? I understand for the building, but do they have access to that area? But they do have the emergency doors right there. So between the wall and the fence, okay, I see what's going. So now going down the side on the bottom, what's that fence made out of? That's going to be a solid 6-foot tall vinyl fence. It's not iron or super. How far are we taking all of these?
gentlemen, I'm sorry, I have to adhere to my, I have to adhere to my,
I have a hard time. I just trying to
structure.
clarify.
Yeah, because we can't hear, and I need to have
Okay.
the ability to have everything on public record so everyone can hear things. So perhaps if you can ask your questions, and then I'll invite the applicant to come forward to address your questions and concerns, if that's okay?
It probably was one of my main questions, what the fencing is going to be made of.
Okay.
So are they going to complete my, are they going to complete my fence now, or am I going to still be half and half?
Okay.
I was wanting to know if they were going to be responsible for
Okay.
that.
I'm writing them down so we make sure to get your concerns addressed.
So the bottom is going to be a chain link and vinyl then? And how far is that brush going to be cleared out? Is it going to be cleaned out right to where my concrete fence ends, or?
Okay,
That'd be another question.
okay.
You know, a lot of us have lived in this neighborhood for 10-plus years. I've lived here 13 now. And I noticed we all want the same things, and I think this might be good for the neighborhood or for the city to have a daycare there. I just, when it's in your back door, it's just a little bit different.
Yes, sir.
You were talking about hearing the kids. We can hear the traffic, the cars running up and down 26 at night. So, everything they do to help, is it really going to help? Oh, I hope it does. Last time we came in here, the points were argued, and the council agreed that there needed to be some work done. And all I just want to know is if you really think this is enough right now, is it going to get us all of our needs? Because again, see, I'm not proposed about that. I would surely think with the size Colleyville is, and another location might have been found, but that's not the case, and that's why we're getting this beer. It must be a good price anyway, but anyway, I retired last week, and so I'm just gonna, just sit out there in that rocker and just watch what happens and go. And Christy, didn't tell me about that. Say it looks good on plan, but another question of mine is the maintenance of it. We're talking about drainage. I can see that drainage right now from that fence draining halfway down through my yard. So I've already seen the effects of a hard rain right there. And you won't know about it till it's finished, and then you have a first rain come again. What's actually going to be done? So my question is to us and the rest of the neighbors too, are they going to be responsible for any of that, or is it all going to be put on us?
Okay, I have one question for you. In terms of the drainage, your home is west of this property, and so are you saying that the drainage is draining from east to west, or
It's actually coming from the north, coming down.
Okay, north to south.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I have an additional card on this item from Susan Reynolds. Ms. Reynolds, if you noted on your card that you'd like to speak in opposition of this item. And I'll remind you to please state your name and address for the public record. And we are limiting our time to 5 minutes, and since we're not able to use the audible or the visual reminder, we're having little cards held up, 1 minute remaining kind of thing.
My name's Susan Reynolds. I live at 6417 Kingston. Gotta keep talking. I think that they've met all the parameters for a child care. It sounds wonderful and perfect, but I don't think it's perfect where they're placing it. They're trying to fit a rectangle into a triangle, and without realizing the big footprint that they're creating and the neighborhood that they're displacing. I remember the gentleman saying in previous meetings that their desire was to get into Colleyville, and that this landowner was offering them a sweet deal to get into these properties cheap. So it's not about if this is a good fit for them, it's that it's enabling them to get into Colleyville and to get into it cheaply. As far as the playgrounds, they've made an effort to move the playgrounds, but now it doesn't affect my home so much because I'm stuck in the middle of the building there, where my backyard comes up to the center of the building. My friends are now at the base at the back, my neighbors, and the two playgrounds now are together, and they're going to get the bulk of the sound. They're going to get the racetrack, and if you ever heard Hot Wheels and tricycles racing around on your street, they're going to hear that all day long. My concern now for us is now they've moved the building closer to us. They say it's 25-foot buffer, but there's a 5-foot sidewalk I think that people are going to be walking on, so that gives us 20 feet. I like to think in terms of yards because I'm a seamstress, so that's 7 yards of fabric. That's barely covering a window covering, and so we've got an 8-foot wall, even though he says it's going to be 11 because they sit down. The building's 11 foot high, up to the roof is another 11 feet, and then the tower is another 8 feet. So what we're creating across the whole backside of that building in our wall is an alley. In an alley, it echoes, sound is louder, And I have a hard time believing that those doors are just going to be used for emergency, because if you look at this elevation, this isn't a utility side to a building. They've made it look attractive, just like the front of the building, but it says here won't be seen from the street. So why would you decorate the back side to look like the front side if you're not going to have people back there? And I believe that it was originally that the parents were going to be dropping off their children and picking up their children at those doors, because he said they're going to park and drop off their kids. They're not going to have a drive-through where the kids get dropped off. As far as the trees go and preserving these trees, I know they have them marked here. They're not preserving these trees. These are on our property. These don't belong to them. And the question I have with the arborist, and I know you guys hire this man to go in and tag these trees, but back when they were building the wall and marking it, we found out that we had an added extra 2 feet of property because our fence line had been off the line for all these years. And so those trees became my property. So I went to the city and asked them if they could take those trees out because they were taking other trees out on the lot. And they said, oh no, because those are tagged. Those can never come out. And I said, but they'll be my property. And they said, no, you can never take those down because they're tagged. Well, all these yellow trees are tagged. Why do we hire an arborist to tag trees if we don't respect them and we just tear them down because a building's coming in? And as far as the traffic goes, the traffic wasn't meant to infringe on Kingston Drive. The traffic was the fact that it was going to infringe on all of Colleyville, who uses 26. He lives in Plano. He has no idea how the traffic backs up at the light at Tinker during rush hour at night. And those kids are going to be exiting at night. And to get to the entrance to Winding Creek, if you're coming from the south and you miss the first exit, you go to the second, you have to make a U-turn to get into to the parking lot. It's not a direct shot. And so we have all these traffic coming south. They're going to have to wait. It's just going to be a mess. But I just feel that when you make this decision, I hope that you consider the impact it's going to have on our lives and our backyards. They're going to be so close, I might as well open up a gate and extend my services to them to teach swim lessons, because that's how close it's going to be. If you ever ran the 25-yard dash, they're going to be 7 yards from my house. And how quickly that race is, it's going to be 3 leaps. So please consider another area for this preschool. This is not something that should be in these lots, even though it seems perfect to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I have no more cards. If anyone else would like on this item, if anyone else would like to come forward to speak on this item, or even if you don't wish to speak on this item and you wish to turn in a speaker card, you can elect not to speak. To record your support or opposition for this item. Okay, with that said, I'm going to ask the applicant to come forward if you'd like to respond to some of the questions and concerns here.
So, state my name again. Are we good?
It's okay.
Okay. So in regards to the fence, if I don't know if there's a way to expand on the lower south, be the southwest corner of the playground, there's going to be, what we're proposing is a solid vinyl fence on where the playground fencing would be on the west side, and then going directly to the east. So it would help block the gentleman's property to the south, because the property, as he states, is that 8-foot concrete wall will stop about halfway, but we're essentially adding a second solid fence on the west side in conjunction to where his property is, and then taking that fence to the east. And again, it's a 6-foot solid fence to help reduce down the noise. As far as the drainage is concerned, if you pull up the drainage plan, you can see that the drainage is designed by our civil engineering team, and it has to be approved by the city. And the grades are 616 on the west side, dropping down all the way to 612 on the eastern side of the property. So the drainage will flow from the west to the east and shouldn't flow onto the gentleman's property. And again, that all has to meet the city code perspective. I would say that this footprint of this building is 10,000 feet. I believe, if I'm correct, 12,000 is acceptable? Yeah, up to 12,000 feet. So the building is actually smaller than what is allowed. So I think that would be appreciated by the local community on that, from that perspective. In regards to the children playing on the west side of the property, there is no room to play there. If they were to go outside of that door, and again, that the purpose is for emergency purposes, you only have a 5-foot wide sidewalk with a fence that helps contain the property, so they shouldn't be playing, there's no intention to play within that space. In regards to the trees, we're trying to comply to all the rules and regulations within Colleyville, and again, the arborists, we're going by their direction, and the trees that are getting taken out are within the building footprint, which is typical of any development, and we do have the landscape plan that was suggested by the arborist, and that's what we're guided to go by, so that's what we're following. And I believe I've answered most of the questions I put forth.
Thank you very much. Okay, if seeing no one in addition is going to come forward to speak on this item, I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Okay, I would like to open discussion with my fellow commissioners. I think we have a few things to discuss.
Can we ask some questions?
Yeah, we can. I want to make some comments if I could, or actually maybe a question to Ben. Ben, I thought I saw on the paperwork that the building was 20-something square feet in the presentation.
It's a 10,000 square foot proposed building. The creme de la creme was over 20,000 square feet.
Okay. All right. Okay, gotcha. I understood.
Yeah, so the proposed building is a single story at 10,000 square feet.
Okay. In our records here, do we have any indication with the new plan, the updated plan, what the square footage of the playground area is? It was going to be 4,960 square feet, I believe. And I'd like to know what that is now under this new plan.
So the infant toddler, which is the north playground area on the front side of the building, that is 1,440 square feet.
I'm
no,
sorry,
I'm
1,000 what now?
No, I think I have that number wrong. I think one of the numbers is not reading correctly. 1,864 square feet. And then the pre-K, which is the southern playground area in the front, is 3,294 square feet.
So these have not been modified since, these are the same square footage since the original submission?
I don't know.
I don't know how that could be if we've made such major modifications. Okay, but, so 3,294, and then the other one's...
The one on the south is 4,094. So 4,094.
Okay. And that is for the older kids, I believe.
Yeah, that's the school age.
4,094?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Oh,
My-
yeah, so
my
that's a total of
recollection-
9,252.
I'm sorry, do you mind
Yeah.
repeating that, please?
9,252 is the total.
Okay, I must have written, misremembered my recollection of the square footage of the playground area. Okay. Let's see. Has there been a modification to your recollection, Ben, of the number of children that will be attending the school or admitted?
I think they were reviewing that, but at this time, I think they've maintained it at 190 students or children. I think that is the same number as last time.
Okay, we'll need to get clarification on that because I saw something different, I think, in the other presentation. 191 school kids, okay. Okay, and 20 teachers, I believe. So, okay. Okay, I'm probably going to have additional questions, but I'd like to open up conversation and questions and concerns and with my fellow commissioners.
Yeah, I have a few questions for him first.
Okay. If you'd like to come forward, so we can ask, I guess, a few questions here.
So I think you might have mentioned it, but I'm sure the vinyl fence on the southwest side, how tall is that?
It's 6 feet.
6 feet?
Yes, sir.
And what are you doing on the south side of that playground? Is that going to be an iron fence or?
No, the south side would be vinyl. So if you're coming from the west property line on the south side, we're going to extend that out a portion to vinyl, and probably to where it starts to turn to the northeast.
On the east side of the
Yeah.
building? So it'd be vinyl on the west side, south side, and then
Correct.
the metal
So
fence.
on the full south side,
Yes.
so how many feet would that be?
I don't know exactly what
Okay.
that is, but you can see where it just starts to turn to the northeast. So that whole portion would be solid vinyl.
But the south side would be the same height of fence as the west side, 6 feet.
Yes, correct. Yes, sir.
I thought the west side was 8 feet.
That's the existing western solid masonry wall that's already there.
Okay,
This is additional fencing that we're adding in.
so you're going to drop down from the existing 8 feet to 6 feet?
Yes. That's a standard size on children playground, on childcare playgrounds.
But it's the same lot, right? On the same lot, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Is there a way for me to zoom in on this area where I can highlight, where I could really show it?
We really don't have that very easily.
Southwest quarter.
Is that what you're asking? Is that what you're?
Yeah. So the
So,
whole
Yeah, I mean-
the whole western property line already has an 8-foot fence, and then we drop down just due to grading. And then we're gonna have a secondary fence, that 6 feet vinyl fence on the western portion of the playground. And then coming towards the east, that will also be solid vinyl fencing until we start to turn to the north.
So that vinyl fencing is inside the 8-foot fence?
Correct, yes, on the
But
west
it's
side.
going to, the gentleman did not get his question answered about, he has a partial fence, and I realized that if you were to complete that fence, you would be on someone else's property.
Correct.
But he didn't get his question answered, so I want to be sure you answer that, that he understands you will not be continuing that wall because that is someone else's property.
Correct.
But on the interior of the fence that's already there, there's going to be
An additional vinyl.
an additional 5-foot vinyl fence.
6 foot, yes.
6 foot, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
An
Okay.
additional 6 foot.
And that's basically 20 feet east of the stone wall.
Correct.
I'm assuming then there's an internal hallway system.
There is, yeah, there's an interior corridor so the children can leave their classrooms flowing to the east, if you would, in the hallway, and then exiting out the front of the facility or the south side to get to the playgrounds.
So can you walk us through, parent drives up, walk us through that whole process
Yeah,
of how they
so
get in the building?
there's
and all
only
that?
one entrance and exit for parents and their children, and that's through the front of the facility. That is not through any of the secondary doors that you see around the facility. All the exterior doors that you're seeing have to do with child safety code. Every child care room outside of infants has to have 2 ways of entry and exit. So when parents are picking up or bringing their children in, they have to go through the front door, they have to check in, and have the children come in with the parent and get accepted by the staff. And basically, I think there's a biometrics where there's a fingerprint scan or a card swipe in order to get the children in or out of the facility. So there's an internal electronic record-keeping system.
No weekend hours at all?
No.
Okay. And then the other question I had is, what you stated is a little different than what's in the packet in terms of hours of playground usage. I think in the packet it shows 10 a.m. to 11:30 and then 3 to 4:30, and I think you mentioned 9 to 11:30 and 3 3 to 5 is,
Yeah, there was a secondary document that was submitted on the playground times. It does show 9 to 11:30. It was updated from the previous time, and then from 3 to 5. So Jackie, we sent that on latter part of last week.
And why was that modified?
What's that?
Why was that modification made?
I don't know why it was 9 to 9:30 previous. I thought it was 9. I can
well,
get information for you.
yeah, what I'm looking at, and in the packet, is just shows like playground schedule, and then there's a infant toddler, 10 to 10:30 is the first session, that's infant, and then toddler, 10:30 to 11, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
And then the preschool and school-age children, 9:30 to 10. There, okay, so there is the 9:30, but nothing goes to 5, is 4:30 was the latest.
Yeah, this one, it goes to 5. So it's 3 to 5 in the afternoon and 9 to 11:30. And the 9 to 9:30 slot is the toddlers and 2-year-olds, so extremely small children. I know the biggest concern was, what time, and it's not any earlier than 9.
Claudia, did you have a question?
Oh, I have more questions, yes.
Okay.
First of all, I do want to tell Mr. Brown that we appreciate that you want to be a part of Colleyville. That's important to us to have good, thoughtful people within our business community. So thank you for all the work you've done from the beginning and considering all of our concerns as well as the concerns of the neighbors. Our job here, I think, is to do everything we can to help you achieve your goals, all the while taking good care of our citizens here. So with that said, I want to understand, first of all, is the drive that goes through here, is it a two-way drive or is it a one-way drive?
With inside the development?
Yes.
It's a two-way fire lane. It's designated a fire lane, and it's two-way.
Okay, and is that a 5-mile-an-hour speed limit?
There is no speed limit right now.
Yeah, there's nothing stipulated.
Okay. Do you have any plans to try to control the traffic speed in
We
there?
couldn't, we would have to ask the city to do that. It's an
Yeah.
internal drive that we would have no control over, because there's other property owners in there as well. Am I correct? Yeah.
Okay, do we have a standard for that, Ben? Are you familiar with that?
I do not believe that we do, being that it's a private drive.
It's a private drive,
The city does not maintain it,
right.
and it is obviously designated as a fire lane, so that emergency access is available. I don't know all of the traffic laws. I don't know if we can post a speed limit on that. I know within the city, public streets, if it's not posted, I think it's 25 miles per hour for the maximum speed limit. But I don't think that would apply to this
Right,
because
right,
it's a private street. It's a
private-
drive, it's not
Okay,
even a
so
street.
that is part of my concern, because you have other businesses in here where people are coming and going. And do I understand that the parents will be getting out of the car and walking the children in? And
Yes, ma'am.
so it's in and out
Yeah,
from the parking
they'll
lot
come in
to
and
the...
park, and there was also parking data presented in the packet showing how many within 10-minute increments. And usually the high is about 28 spots taken. I believe we have 48 or 49 spots. I may be wrong on that.
Okay, well, that was a concern that I had. Also, that 8-foot wall has already been installed. So I'm assuming, has this property already been graded?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay, because, was it, Mr. Hildreth that had the drainage concern? Is that?
Yes.
Okay, so he had a drainage concern, and, so I'm wondering, were you aware of that, or were you made aware of that?
Due to his opposition letter, yes, and he is to the west, and that's why I was pointing out, on the western property side, the elevation, I believe, is 616, and when you flow to the east, it drops down to 612. So meaning it's gonna flow from the west to the east. We don't go east to west towards his property.
Is that wall obstructing that drainage?
That I'm unaware of. I wasn't involved in the design of the wall, so.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because we also had a letter from another citizen, the Pullens,
So,
and they are very concerned about the drainage. In fact, they had someone from our Public Works Department out. Just this letter it's a bit concerning. Mr. Bright from our environmental compliance officer came out. It was a heavy rain. He looked at the problem that they were having with the water caused the entrance. Let's see what he says. Ever since they regraded the lot and put up a fence, we have a standing water problem after it rains. This year we have had heavy rain, which has resulted in approximately 6 inches of water around our outbuilding. Sometimes it lasts over a day. The water has caused the entrance and patio stones to shift. It's only a matter of time before the inside and structure has damage. So at that point, he contacted the city, and Mr. Bright, our environmental compliance officer, went out, and a few hours later, he called to let them know that he had dug a small trench into the field to help the drainage. So I think they have a real concern here about what's going to happen.
what is the gentleman's address?
His address is not, it's not on here. Oh, yes, it is. Is that okay for me to give that address? The letter's public
I
record,
was gonna
right?
ask
Yeah,
you-
it's part of the public.
Okay,
it's part of
65,
the-
Address up,
his
and I can
address is
address
six-
that more
Yeah,
frequently.
yeah, we can, yeah.
Yeah, but it is public record. His
Yeah,
address
exactly.
is on Kingston Drive, though. So, Mr. Hildreth is concerned, and this gentleman obviously has a problem since that fence was installed. And so drainage is something that we can't take lightly, of course. So, I think our compliance officer was great to go out there and dig a trench for him. That's the kind of service people we have here in Colleyville. But that's definitely a concern that I think needs to be addressed.
Sure, I think that's easy to address in the fact that we can more than happy to talk with the existing property owner, the developer, and see if we could work together. Again, we are lower than those properties, so we would actually have to create some kind of channel underneath the fence so that water could flow. And then on our drainage and grading plan, we actually have inlets on the west side of the property collecting water.
Okay, but
So-
there has to be a way for the water to get through that wall.
Again, we're more than happy to create those channels as long as we can do it on our property and then work in conjunction with the neighbors. But we can't impede the structure of the wall
I
itself.
mean, I can see how you would think that because you're lower, that drainage is not a problem, but it apparently is at
Sure,
this
we're
point
more than
in
happy to
time.
help,
Okay.
do additional channels. We could-
Just wanted to make you aware, and that's something that we would take very seriously into consideration. And also, Ms. Reynolds seemed to be concerned about the traffic there at Tinker, and she is like 150% correct on that. In the afternoon, the traffic in that area is very heavy, and so while it may not cause any traffic issues within the actual neighborhood in that through 26 and Tinker there, it's going to add quite a bit of traffic there. So those are my comments.
I have a question on that same item regarding traffic. Your presentation said that, I think the language was that there was little to minimal traffic, impact on traffic.
To Kingston itself, correct. With
To
the way that
Kingston?
you-
Well,
with
what
the
about
way-
Colleyville Boulevard and Tinker Boulevard? I
Sure.
mean, because that's really what we're concerned about here.
We have not received any comments from the city engineer in regards to traffic, so I don't know if there was any review from that perspective on the data that was presented, but that's not been any part of any requirement that we've seen.
Right, there would be no, from our perspective, Colleyville Boulevard is built to meet the demand that this development, even all of the lots together, to be able to not detrimentally impact the traffic
Okay,
as Colleyville Boulevard was built to handle.
Yeah, I was believe there was an overall traffic plan that would have encompassed everything that,
Right.
within the development itself, the future
Okay.
development.
okay. Mr. Hildreth had also asked if and how far the brush would be cleared in the adjoining area
So.
on the west side.
On the west side, we have to stay 15 feet, or by the building line's 25 feet, and the fence line itself that we're gonna add is 20 feet, so that we're gonna be off of that. On the southern property line, there's not a whole lot of brush that's coming up towards the creek, and if you could go to the site plan itself, we're only gonna go to where the fencing is. So if you see the dotted line on the south side of the property, that's where the fence is gonna go. We're not gonna go beyond that. Because the playground does have to maintain less than a 2% slope for safety of the children on there, which there's not a whole lot of slope currently.
Okay. Okay,
That's what the retaining wall is going to take care of on the western side of the property.
okay. Let's see, what else did I have? Oh, parking. You had mentioned that there, in the parking plan that you submitted, there was 48 parking spaces?
48, 49, if I recall.
Okay, so 48, and then at the high,
So it's-
and at the high with parents picking up and dropping off and so forth, you thought there might be 20?
27 or 28.
27 or
Usually the high.
28? Okay,
And the code, I believe, it only requires 38.
okay.
So we
Well-
exceed the code.
In your original presentation, back in May, I think, you said that there was going to be 20 staff, so where are they going to park?
So the staff are there any given time. There's teachers there's parents coming and going, but not all staff drive. In the plan itself, it says that 15% of the staff don't actually drive. That's based upon 250 locations at Kitty Academy across the country. So these are averages, and so
Okay.
there has to be a baseline. So again,
So I'm not sure how exact 20, at the high time is really,
Again, these are
Accurate.
averages from
mean-
around the country that we're using. But again, having over 40-plus, there's never a situation where we've seen, out of all the preschools that we've done, where that's been an impact. I do have to go back to the city code, which we definitely exceed.
right, but I think it's probably a little optimistic to think that you would have the most cars you would have in parked is 20.
Well, we can go through the list of, as far as the amount is, at any given time, sure, it
mean-
can exceed it, but again, we're going on averages,
Okay.
whereas up to,
I mean, I just think it is worth, adding to the discussion.
how is it beyond, we meet the code, so I don't see why there would be an issue going.
Well, I mean,
past the
just-
code.
I'm sorry?
I don't see why there would be an issue if we exceed the code. That's
Well, I'm just saying that, I didn't say that you're not meeting or exceeding code. It's just that I think I think when you're putting forth that the maximum might be 20, I think that probably it's going to be more than that because you're going to have people that work there.
Again, these
You
are
know?
averages, and the high here on the average says 28. Sure, it could spike up to 33 or 35 at any given time.
Okay.
I can see that.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have any questions?
I do have some questions.
Okay.
About the parking, you said 20 staff there, and they park, and you said about it's average all over the country, but it's a special city, we do not have any kind of public transportation. So whatever staff was working there, they should drive and come here, or either use the bicycles.
Or someone could drop them off.
Yeah,
I mean,
spouses drop them off.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
There's
mean,
Uber, there's multiple other ways to get to work.
And the
not
second thing
everybody
is the
always drives.
horseshoe, it's good that that development has the horseshoe shape in and out, but it's not in one direction, it's a two-way direction horseshoe, it's not in just one in and one out. You can go in either direction. With the
that an
kids,
issue?
it could be an issue. Because there's a certain times with there's a peak time for drop-in and drop-off with the daycare. Usually 6:30 start time, 6:30 to 7, it's a peak time until 8:30, 8:45, usually whatever I saw in the other daycares. And pickup time, 3:30, 5:30, that's the peak time. And a lot of traffic congestion at that time as well. So I'm not talking about the 26 traffic, I'm talking about the traffic in the horseshoe going in and out from this development. 191 kids means, I believe it's 191?
It's 190.
190.
190. So 190 parents come in and out in a very small window of picking up the kids.
This is similar to Creme de la Creme, which has 331 students, and we have 190.
Yeah, my kids were in Creme de la Creme, and I know it's very difficult to get in and out from that.
And actually, the horseshoe, to me, brings advantage, because people would develop their own natural traffic patterns on how they know at the time they're dropping their children off, when they exit, if it's better for them to go to the left or to the right, based upon the traffic flow, curb cuts, and things of that nature. So again, I'm going to go back to the city engineer and team approved this development in conjunction with the expansion of 26 to handle the traffic load that may be there.
Okay. Let's see. Did you have anything else?
I do have another
Okay.
question. And there is a vacant plot right in front of this property. And it could be any restaurant, drive-through restaurant, Taco Bell, we don't know what's come up.
Yeah, but really, honestly, we have to deal with just this particular case. We can't project, what if on other, vacant lots. I think that, he has zero control over that. So that's just my opinion, but I think that we should probably just stick to what his concerns are. Let's see. I did have another question for you. What was that? Oh, if this is approved, the SUP, would you be willing, or would your organization be willing to consider, given the fact that this is a private drive, and the city of Colleyville has no regulatory ability to monitor or regulate the speed limits, would you be, if we had a discussion up here, would you be willing to work with us on setting, a speed limit in that area? I mean, with all these little children, and you know what I mean? It's
Absolutely.
like,
I don't think you can go faster than about 20 or 25 in this development.
Yeah, I
You're
mean,
gonna
with
jump the curb.
yeah, I'm just thinking with all the children,
Sure.
and I
No,
know
I mean, that'd be
Colleyville is
a
known
naturally
for,
benefit.
I know we're known for, everyone has to slow down here. I mean, when I moved here in 2008, I was shocked that basically I lived in California, right, in Irvine, planned community. We drove 50 miles an hour through our neighborhoods, and that was the speed limit. But it's built different here, and we have a lot of rural areas, and anyway, so it's different. But so I would like to, if we get to this point, I would like to maybe have it a speed limit imposed, basically.
No
And I know it's going to probably naturally take care of itself. But just, I would feel better if, especially with the children, having a regulated speed limit.
Sure.
Probably slow, like 10 miles an hour, or something similar to a school zone.
Sure.
I don't know how that can be regulated, but maybe I'm not sure. We'd have to, I guess, get into that, on how we can enforce that. How could we enforce that?
I don't know that we would be able to enforce it from a police standpoint.
Right.
But if that's I mean, I think you can say that signs along their frontage, posting a speed limit of 10 miles per hour or whatever that number ends up being, would be okay, knowing that the majority will probably take advantage and meet that speed, but if there was violation, I don't know that the police can do anything about it, being that it's a private drive.
Okay, and then along that same line, if there's certain, I'm not really familiar with this, development, but I think it would, if there are areas that are closer to busier other businesses that, and maybe a parent might be parking across the street, or an individual kid may be walking across the street, I think it would be great to have, especially right near the school or the daycare, crosswalks that, you know, they light up, you know, when a kid wants to go across the street. You know, with little kids, I think that even though their parents are gonna be with them, you'd think, but that would also be a natural regulation for the speed.
Yeah, I couldn't begin to go down that path on how that would be possible, because it would be off our property, and
Yeah, I mean, I think that can be a suggestion, but I don't think that we can
We can't
enforce
regulate that.
it. Yeah.
Okay,
I,
got it.
yeah, we couldn't.
I'm
do
just
anything about it. It would be
brainstorming,
on
I'm
our
trying to
property.
think of the concerns that I would have, you
Sure.
know, as a parent and with my kids there, and the fact that we can't regulate the speed limit there. It's,
Sure.
you know, I'm trying to figure out, well, what can we do besides put the sleeping policeman there?
If you're a parent and you're concerned, then you park over here in the parking lot and you just walk your child in, right?
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but, you know, I'm just thinking, you know, speed of vehicles, you know what I mean? It's just, there's a lot of things that we can't really, I'm trying to think about ways we might mitigate things that are gonna be unforeseen issues in the future.
I just looked up school zone speed, and it varies from 15 to 25 miles an hour. So, you know, personally, I think if we tried to treat this like a city street and put up speed signs, 25 mile an hour, I mean, you can't, I think that's appropriate, and, I mean, parents have to take some responsibility. and make sure
Right,
parking there.
yeah, I mean, yeah,
More
right,
than happy
right.
to put it on our property and, you know, talk with the developer about implementing it with the
Okay.
internal drive.
I mean,
So
it's just a thought.
I have a question also. So this is not just a preschool. This is a whole business development. Is that correct? Or is this drive is just for your school?
No.
No, it's for the whole
For the
development.
whole
About
development.
I believe 8 lots are within this development. I could
Exactly.
be just off.
Exactly. So, I mean, it would be great if we could do something about that, but we really can't. We would like for people to be thoughtful in that respect. I know in parking garages, the speed limit generally is 5 miles an hour, but I also know people do not go 5 miles an hour in parking garages. So, understanding that this is not a self-contained school with a private road, then we're actually trying to control a whole development, which we can't. Bottom line, we can't.
I'm gonna ask you to please, just because you haven't spoken in a little bit, if you can just restate your name and address, please?
My name is Frey Webster, 112 Quail Run here in Colleyville. So in answer to your question, there are 8 lots in there. 2 of them, the wedding chapel venue is on. This would be on 2 lots as well, so that would be 4 of the 8 lots. When the fire lane loop was built, it was built in conjunction with the city engineers, and we took into account the fact that you want to maintain a proper speed through there, so we have it going over a bridge. There are curvatures and undulations to the driveway to make it safe, but to naturally slow down like we do on city streets, where we put small curves and roundabouts, and that helps control the speed. It's a 2-way fire lane is what it is. It would be similar to when you drive into Market Street, and you have 2-way drive aisles up there. It's very similar to that in fashion, except that it's not straight. It curves around the property, and that helps maintain safe speed. And you're right, the parents have to take responsibility in it as well. The fact that we've taken the traffic off of 26 and onto the private loop really enhances the safety factor. It gets it off the busy road. You don't turn right off of a Hall Johnson per se into a parking lot, you turn onto the fire lane, and you have almost 800 feet before you get to the building. If you go the short way, you might have about 400, 420 feet before you get to the building. So it gives it not only stackability, if that was to be a case of backup, and that would be off the main drive, but it also just gives a slower speed rate, safer all the way around. And that's what the development was intended to be when it was designed, when it was laid out, and to get that flow off the front too. I think someone had a question about what if fast food was put up there on the front. In this particular PUD, fast food is not available. It's not allowed in this PUD. And so that's a consideration. It's retail, but it's not fast food allowed up there. So there are some other considerations. So many of those considerations are taking in all valid points, all good points for us who are residents. You know, Mr. Brown isn't a resident of Colleyville. I am, 22 years. I think, and I've been in the development and construction business much longer than that, I hate to admit. But this meets so many of the criteria we want for safety, and we want it for the aesthetics. We want it for the benefit to our community and to the residents of our community. It meets all that. It meets all of the codes. We're not asking for any deviations to the code. It meets all the code. The city staff has been over this with a fine-tooth comb 2 times. And that's just 2 times to bring to you. It was 3 or 4 times before it ever got to that point, just having them redo and revamp and making sure that it met the criteria. The traffic at Tinker, we've all lived through that the last 2 years, you know, and it's just a mess. But it's cleared up significantly now that the road is starting to open up and the construction is completing. So we see that really opening up and happening very nice, which really enhances what this opportunity is for this organization to be there and for us as residents of Colleyville. So again, you know, I'm not opposed to posting the speed limit signs in there to put 25-mile-an-hour speed limit signs. You know, we still own most of the rest of the lots, and I don't have a problem with safety. I think that's a great thing. And so if that was a condition that we had on approval, without hesitation, we'd do that. We think that's a good safe feature to do anyway. So again, it wouldn't be enforceable. But most people would obey it, and you know, you always have a few people who ignore everything. So
Yeah.
anyway, any other questions?
Well, I do have actually a quick comment. I know that we've put y'all through a lot, and I really appreciate it because, you know, we care about our city. I know you do too. And I know it's a laborious process sometimes, so thank you so much for doing what you can to make this work.
As a developer, the questions are tough. As a resident, they're great.
Okay,
And so I
thank
get
you.
to see them from both sides. You know, Stephen only gets to see them from one side, but I appreciate your effort and your concerns, and I think those are very valid. And that's why we have these checks and balances. That's why daycares require SUPs, so that you can vet them out and make sure that they're meeting the criteria. Is this safe for our city? Is it safe for the children going to be there? Is it safe for the parents driving in? Is it safe for the people driving by who aren't stopping at that venue? Those are all very important questions, and I think we've answered those very well in the design and the layout and the overall traffic flow, and then the flow. I know you had some significant questions about the safety of the children with the creek and the other areas, and they're maintaining that with safe fencing and obviously monitoring the children when they're outside, but including some safe fencing. Mr. Brad asked about would the fence continue on his property. Well, unfortunately, our property line stops there. So the adjoining owner, when they develop that, then they should continue that. That's a requirement of the city, and they will have to continue that fence on down, just like to the north of us. It'll have to be continued there one day when that develops or redevelops. And so some things like that have to take place in time. And, you know, that all comes as we continue as a city to grow, and that's what y'all do. I don't envy you your jobs, and I do appreciate the effort you put in. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Anyone else have any questions before they sit down?
Well, I don't know that it's well, yes, I do have a question. One of the questions that was originally raised was about the operator. I know you're going to be the owner. Is that correct, Mr. Brown?
Correct.
Okay, but someone else is going to be operating the school. And that, at that point in time, when we were questioning you, that individual had no prior experience in
Correct.
preschool operations. So has that training taken place yet, or is that contingent on the agreement?
No,
or
there's been
not?
preliminary training. It has started, but not into the detail that it will, because you're looking at this facility probably wouldn't open for another 15 months. And so there's a lot of time before that. So,
But you still plan to have the same individual
Correct.
as operator?
yes.
Okay, so, one other thing, the fact that this is a business park, would lead one to believe that it's going to be, I'm thinking more office-type businesses as opposed to the daycare, and I think that's probably why we're discussing it, why it needs a special use permit. Is that correct, Ben? Because daycare is not included under that.
It's included.
Well,
Is it
I
included?
do know that any daycares have to have, in the city of Colleyville, any daycares that are wanting to operate and beginning an operation, they have to go through the SUP process.
Okay, but I'm asking Ben, as an office park, would this be a normal part of an office park? When this office park was developed?
Well, it's just like our chairwoman was saying, in any of our commercial districts, a daycare center requires a special use permit, and that's inclusive of our professional office district. And so if it was just zoned professional office, they would have to go through the same special use permit process.
Okay. So is it zoned specifically for office?
It is a mixed use with office and retail. The retail is primarily for those lots that have frontage on Colleyville Boulevard. And then your office uses would be on these properties, the rear properties. But the Land Development Code identifies daycare center as an option to request a special use permit in our office district.
But it's not defined as part of our office district. I'm trying to figure out why. In other words, if it's an office district, you're saying daycare falls under that?
Well, it doesn't, so here's the excerpt from the Land Development Code. It's a special use permit in pretty much all of our commercial districts. And so it's not defined in any of our districts, if you think of it that way. It's a special use, and you can only ask for this special use request in our professional office, neighborhood commercial, village retail, shopping center, and highway commercial.
Okay, so there are other categories where this could be approved?
But only with a special use permit. It's a special use permit in all cases. Yes.
In any of those?
Yeah,
Right.
so if you think about it, Claudia, you have, for daycares, it's not an option to have a daycare operate in, this type of daycare operate in a residential district.
Well, I'm not
And then
asking
the
about
other
that.
opposite, the other is non-residential. So all these different business parks, all these other non-residential classifications fall under the umbrella of non-residential.
I understand that.
Okay.
So my understanding would be no matter where you were going to put a daycare in Colleyville, you would have to get an SUP.
Yes, sir.
No matter where we were putting it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And can you go over just to make sure we're all clarified here?
Oh,
There's
thank
the
you.
map of the lots, it's just like a lot. It's not that one, it shows all the, that was, okay, so either one of these is fine. So, again, if you look at this, there's the Colleyville Boulevard facing properties that are more designed to be retail, but likely have entrance and exit, to Colleyville Boulevard.
They'd come in off the fire lane.
Off the fire lane,
Yes.
okay.
That's TxDOT rated, and we have
Okay.
the only drive entrances we will be allowed.
Okay, that's fine, but still, the only other ones that are not street Colleyville Boulevard facing, if this gets approved, there'll only be two.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
6424 and 6420.
Yeah, and
Those
in
are,
the- in the very top corner, north corner, that's where the wedding venue is. And so that also was an SUP that was
Yeah.
applied for about 3 years ago and approved for the back lots of this development.
So there'd only be 12.
Okay, you made an interesting comment, Mr. Webster, when you were, at first, when you were making your presentation. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot at all, not at all. But you made the comment that this is going to somehow complement the wedding chapel. And I was interested in how that might be.
Well, just the aesthetics of the building.
Okay,
It's a nice-sized building, it's very well laid out, the parking lot and the style of the building, it's really going to be a very attractive design, the way it's set up in there.
okay, okay. And then the other thing that still concerns me is the noise, the children, and in the close proximity to this neighborhood.
So
That's not something we've talked about tonight at all, but that's something that is in my mind and a concern that I have for the neighbors.
So a question, and that has been a big issue for everybody, and everybody's taken that to heart and addressed that. And that's why the playgrounds were moved to the front of the building. So not only do you have the building itself buffering that sound now, preventing the sound from getting back there, you have the landscape buffer, the tree buffer, the additional trees and landscape that they're planting, the fencing that they put in, and all of that has been moved to the east. One of the questions was, what is the distance, in our first meeting back in May, was what is the distance from the playground to the residence over at Creme de la Creme? And it was just a little bit longer than what it was on our property, but the way that it was just a little bit longer. And so now, if you actually draw a line from where these playgrounds are back to the property line or these residents, we have a greater distance than what Creme de la Creme does, except now we also have a building and significant trees acting as sound buffers in addition. So that has all been addressed, and now that noise is on the east side of the building moving toward 26. It's got the trees of the creek that will also buffer the sound of the children playing. They're limited to what time they can be out there to play. So many of those questions have been taken head on, taken to heart, and addressed to resolve those problems, to minimize the intrusion into the homeowners. Again, they knew when they bought the home, this land has been a commercial development for many, many years. It's been intended, but it was an eyesore. It was sitting there undeveloped, but everyone knew it was commercial, and one day it would be developed commercial. And so we have to take that into consideration as well, that this is a bona fide use for this particular piece of property. And in this redesign of putting that noise to the front of the building and pushing it toward the creek and back toward 26, we actually not only buffer that, but actually buffer the sound coming to them from 26 even more so than they have now. So again, it was a great point, and we took it to heart in the redesign.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We ready for a motion?
Well, I want to make sure that everyone has their questions answered, and if anyone else has anything they'd like to discuss, I'd like to make sure we have an opportunity to do that.
I wouldn't want to make any kind of motion without considering the drainage issues of the people who have, actually, we have the one letter, and then we have Mr. Hildreth, but we only know the ones we've heard from, but we don't know, because that's a pretty long.
Right.
And so the drainage, the drainage needs to be addressed for me, for sure.
I could be wrong, but it sounds like the drainage issues related to the fence that's already there. And so it's something that it's not necessarily based on what I'm seeing and the
But they built the
drainage.
fence.
I know, well, that's, okay,
Yeah.
that might be, okay.
Yeah,
But it's not, but it's not, I don't think this building will impact drainage in a negative way. I think the drainage is already being negatively impacted by the fence.
It has.
Ben,
Or that's my understanding.
Ben, would you, do you mind commenting on that, the question regarding the drainage? And I understand that that the drainage, that it is intended to flow from west to east, I understand that. But then we have this letter, and then these other individuals that have brought things forward. And then we had one of our staff individuals that went out to address something. So I'm wondering if that, if our staff person, how that was addressed.
Okay.
And if you think that the drainage, or if our engineers have, how they think that's been addressed.
Okay. So I can't speak for them fully, but I know that they have reviewed this and these plans, and I think conceptually, the plans do comply with our land development code. Obviously, they are having to accept some drainage from the adjacent properties. That wall might be causing somewhat of a barrier, but we can definitely reevaluate that and work with the applicant to come up with some solutions to help resolve those. It sounds like they are very amenable to working through those. And I don't think it'd be anything dramatic that has to be done either. I think it's just, some type of outlets spaced out along that wall to get it onto their property, and then they'll be able to handle it very easily.
Well, since we don't have like a resolution on that, or, I'm wondering how we should go forward. How do you, you know what I mean? I mean, do we have enough information on this?
Well, I think, from my perspective, I think I do, and we have this meeting as reference that we can always refer back to. I think if the intent is for us to work with the applicant to evaluate the situation and find some solutions to help appease and deal with some of those unforeseen drainage issues based on the construction of the wall, I think that we would be able to find some solutions rather quickly and easily to be able to do that. We still have to go through our site plan process, and we'll be able to do a very in-depth, detailed review of all their plans, including the drainage plan, and we could probably get those addressed at that time.
And then in terms of the drainage, and I agree that it probably can be worked out. They seem like they're very flexible and very amenable to making modifications. But how do we know, our responsibility is also to address the concerns of the residents. So perhaps we can get a commitment that that when we review, when you and the applicant work together, that we consider bringing the neighbors with concerns into the conversation at that point, so they feel like, their issues are being heard and addressed.
Yeah, so Randy Bright is our environmental enforcement officer, who is a team member of our Public Works Engineer's office. So we work with him almost daily, and so as long as they are able to verbally say, yes, there is a commitment, then I think that allows us to be able to find those solutions as part of the site plan process.
Okay.
Obviously, if it doesn't fully resolve everything, we'll hear from the neighbors.
Right.
And we do have a committee that reviews drainage situations, very specific drainage situations, and so we do also have that mechanism to where if what we thought was going to work doesn't end up truly working, then that committee will be able to review the drainage issue there specifically and find a solution.
Well, my concern, with my time and history on the water and all that, the water and drainage and all that committee here in Colleyville, I don't want to wait and see. I think I'd like to ask the applicant if they would like to, come forward and give a commitment that we can include in the SUP to do that.
Yeah, and then
What do you think, Claudia?
Well, I think, you can ask.
Okay. Okay.
and if that's part of the motion, then that will be forwarded to City Council, and they might be able to come up with some modifications to the plan that we have today in time for the City Council to look at and
Okay.
hopefully.
Yeah, so I'm going to invite the applicant to come forward, the owner of the property to come forward. to speak to this, because I do want to make sure our residents' concerns are addressed. And as you know, as a resident of Colleyville, we have drainage issues, and I don't want to wait till it becomes an issue where the city is having to deal with it and, deal with this after the fact. So we have the opportunity to get this addressed, now. And so I was wondering if you might be flexible with us including in the SUP language, or at least a recommendation for city council to include this in the SUP.
The drainage really doesn't have a bearing on the SUP, because that is something that the permit won't be issued if the drainage isn't resolved to the engineer's satisfaction. That's part of the code requirement in designing the construction documents. When the development was done, we put in a very extensive underground drainage system out there. When the wall was built, the wall was left several inches high, so it allowed drainage to come in under it, as it does come in from that neighborhood. But that was a couple of years ago, and so I'm sure there's some sediment that is built in there, and that's why when Mr. Bright went out there and dug that out a little bit, it drained off immediately. A couple of years of leaves, heavy trees in that area, and a couple of years of leaves, you can get some backup in that. So we are always proactive in drainage on all of our developments. That's a very important thing. We don't want to be flooded. We don't want to flood somebody. And so, that's through all of our designs, all of our construction, all of our follow-ups. We've worked with Mr. Bright pretty closely for the last couple of years. If there's ever been a question, if there's ever been any unusual washout or anything like that, we've been very prompt to take care of that. He may have already called our project manager that was on that project a couple of years ago, as they have their phone numbers and they're in communication. I don't know if that has happened. But those type of things are always addressed, and they will continue to be addressed if something like that comes up through the construction phase or even after the construction phase.
Right.
Those are very critical things.
But
As the
I'm
applicant,
sorry.
We're more than happy to work with the adjacent property owners from that perspective.
I guess I was curious as to why Mr. Bright himself would go dig a trench. I don't know.
That's just,
Probably because it takes very little for that to drain, and he's really he's a hard worker for the city.
He's
And if he sees a problem that he can fix quickly, he takes care of it. He was great to work with, and I'm sure that's why he did that. Because he said, hey, I can resolve this problem in about 3 minutes, and it was done. So it's probably a lesser problem than it sounds, but it does need to be addressed.
So would you be open to us making if this SUP gets approved here, gets pushed forward to city council, I think that we might, I would feel compelled to request that it be pushed along with a recommendation to city council that the SUP include a commitment that this would be addressed, and with the inclusion of the neighbors' voices and concerns.
We're always in agreement to work.
I know, I just like to get it on the record. Yeah, I'm just trying to do my job for the city. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, any more conversation or discussion on this item? I think we've kind of, well, in my opinion, I'm satisfied and ready to have a vote, but I don't want to do that without knowing that everyone else is on the same page. Nope. Okay, all right, well, with that, I'm going to request a motion on case number ZC 20-0015.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve case ZC 20-0015 with the stipulation that the property owners put in these speed limit signs. What are we gonna say, like 25? And then the drainage is addressed between the property owners, the city, and the residents, however you want to word that.
Okay, perfect. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I will give it my best. So we are going to vote. The motion that's come forward is to vote to approve case number ZC 20-0015 for the special use permit with the requirement that, with the recommendation that the SUP, when drafted with City Council, include 2 items. The first item being speed deterrence on the in the streets in the form of street limit signs, speed limit signs, or something to that nature, and also that the drainage issue is addressed in coordination with the applicant, the owner, and the impacted residents. So with that, I will take a vote. Commissioner Said?
Nay.
Commissioner Holt?
Aye.
Commissioner Matheson votes aye. Commissioner Cook?
Aye.
Commissioner Bevel?
On the basis of several different considerations, I vote nay.
Commissioner Bond?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The motion is approved 4-2. Okay, thank you. All right, so now we have a related item, and this is item number 3B, consideration of a PUD amendment, or of an amendment to the PUDC Plan Unit Development Commercial District for the Winding Creek development, specifically for operation on lots 9R, 10R, Block 1 of the Winding Creek Addition, located at 6412, 6416 Colleyville Boulevard. This is case number ZC 20-012. All right, this is a related item, and whoever's going to present this?
Over here, Commission.
That's right. I mean, I'm getting lost.
Okay. I'll breeze through this since we just talked about the SUP. We know where this is located. We know it has the PUDC zoning. And before you tonight, they are wishing to modify the hours of operation. The underlying PUDC has 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And the modification is specifically for a child daycare facility on the lots 9R and 10R. The hours of operation shall not exceed 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. So that is the request this evening. We did receive those 2 letters in opposition that were included in your packets. Staff is recommending approval of the requested amendment. The amendment to the existing PUDC and adjusting the hours of operation would comply with the Colleyville Development Standards and the Comprehensive Plan.
Okay, 6:30 to 6:30. Okay, thank you. Does anyone have, commissioners have questions for our staff on this item?
This is the same hours of operation that the other daycare center has, right?
That is correct.
Okay, I'm not sure, I'm going to invite the applicant to come forward. I think we've probably addressed this, so if you wish to, please do so. Yes, please.
Stephen Brown.
It's a whole different.
66 Josephine Street, Plano, Texas. The point is exactly what you just said, is just to match up with the local competitive environment, 6:30 a.m., 6:30 p.m.
Okay.
That's the whole point. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone have questions for the applicant before he sits down?
I have a question. So for the holiday parties and other extravagances at school, it will be the same 6:30 time, or it's a different time for that?
For what's that?
For like holiday parties?
So I believe during the work meeting, this was addressed by your legal counsel. After 6:30, it ceases to be a daycare, is that correct? Okay. And so I don't know from a business hours of operation how that's handled. The plan is to have those events within normal business hours anyway.
So as I advised at the work session, those types of events would be outside the general, what you consider daycare operations.
Okay.
And so they would not be restricted by the 6:30 to 6:30 time.
Okay. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that actually brings up a concern. If they're not restricted by the 6:30, 6:30 time, there ought to be some general restrictions for hours. I mean, we certainly can't restrict the wedding venue to end their entertainment and so forth at a certain time, whereas if we do nothing, I mean, granted, it's clear that the little children are going to be out. I mean,
Maybe
it's-
10 PM.
But you know what I mean. I mean, I don't know if we need to do anything with that or not, but I mean, it's pretty, we probably don't, because I think they're probably,
No, I suppose, they could be considered under the 7 AM to 8 PM.
oh, for the development, for the old SUP as a whole.
Right.
Okay,
I mean,
there you go. That's good.
I could see that being
This
a
kind of-
standard that we can enforce, 8 PM.
But it's gonna kind of police itself. I mean,
Yeah, I was just
no
gonna say.
parent's gonna go to a 10 PM party.
Precisely.
Well, you know, we gotta have some fun with it, right? Okay, so at this point, I think if there's no other questions on this item, I'm gonna open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Let's see, I think. I do not have any cards on this item. If anyone wishes to come forward to speak on this, please do so. Seeing no one coming forward, I'm going to close public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Anyone wish to have any additional discussion on the hours?
I just wanted to clarify, I failed to put in the Monday through Friday on this slide, but that's how it's worded in the ordinance, as
Thank
that
you.
is their days of operation.
Okay, thank you for that, for the record, that's great. Okay, anyone else have any other discussion on this item? Okay, I would like to request a motion on this case.
Okay, I'll do it. I make a motion that we approve case ZC 20-012.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we are, this vote, a vote of vote of aye is in favor of case number ZC 20-012. Commissioner Said?
Aye.
Commissioner Holt?
Aye.
Commissioner Matheson votes aye. Commissioner Cook?
Aye.
Commissioner Bevel?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Aye.
Votes approved. Thank you. Or the case is approved. I'm getting tired, I guess. Okay. Okay. Next item we have up is item number 3C, consideration of a special use permit for a fence to extend into the required street yard on lots 9 and 10, Block A, Creekside at Colleyville, Phase 3, located at 3609 LaJoy Lane and 3608 Valmure Avenue, case number ZC 20-011. All right.
Actually, I'm not sure where that came from. We must have printed out the wrong caption for you.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 013. Yeah, and that, okay, yeah. It does, mine does say 011. I'm just saying.
Right, and some of the lots and the addresses you referenced are, I think, it's actually from the last meeting, so what you see on the screen is,
Okay, that's fine. It is July 13th for me, so. All right.
This is an aerial map showing the 3501 Valmer Avenue. It's on the corner of Valmer Avenue and Petrus Boulevard in the Creekside at Colleyville subdivision. It has PUDR zoning, Plan Unit Development Residential zoning. It is residential in use. This kind of shows you the lot there. Quick history, staff did issue an informational letter identifying the fence regulations at the time. The Land Development Code was amended in August of 2019 for placement of fencing from property lines adjacent to a street. In April of 2020, building permit for a new home was submitted and approved for 3501 Valmer Avenue. And then in June of 2020, an SUP application was submitted. And what they're asking for this evening is to put a 5-foot iron rod fence to encroach into the street side yard setback for a corner lot. This is the language from the Land Development Code. And then here on this exhibit, you can see, so in the red is what would be an approved wood fence location, and before you this evening, they are asking for a 5-foot iron rod fence where it's green on the street side yard there. It would be, there'd be about plus or minus 5 feet between that and the sidewalk. This photo was given to us showing an existing, a property across the street that has something very similar treatment of a fence. And you can kind of see here where that corner street side yard is and the pad of the, where the home will be. So any request for a building permit for a fence or wall which does not meet the criteria in this section shall only be authorized after approval of a special use permit by the City Council using the procedures contained in the Land Development Code. We did not receive any correspondence regarding this case. Staff is recommending denial as it does not meet the technical requirements of the Land Development Code. And I know the applicant is here this evening.
Okay. For my fellow commissioners, do you have any questions for staff on this item? No? Okay. I would like to invite the applicant to come forward on this. And as you've probably heard countless times this evening, if you can please state your name and address for the public record.
Thank you. My name is Cheryl Turner, and my address is 5835 Shoreside Bend in Irving, Texas, and zip code 75039. And I am currently the president of Mainview Homes for the Texas region. And I'm here requesting this application because we are building in the Creekside community. We have actually been building in the Creekside community since 2015 and are almost complete. We have, this is a 260 lot gated community, and the Creekside community has been ongoing construction since about, I think 2012 in some of the early phases. Mainview has actually been in there since 2015. At this point, we have 22 remaining starts left in the section of Creekside that Mainview is in, and we are the last section of Creekside. So in essence, we're down to the last 10% of the lots in Creekside. I'm requesting this special use permit because what we're asking for is a 5-foot metal fence that was allowed for properties up until the changes that existed in August. And as a result, we have several properties within Creekside that do have this configuration. It is a gated community. The streets are private streets. So some of the issues that I've heard raised about the reasons for the fence ordinance that came about in August really have to do a lot with areas and corner streets that are open to the public. This is really not a public, it's a private street community where this application has been allowed and this treatment has been allowed numerous times and is actually very consistent with the street scene throughout the community. So I'm here to ask that we allow to continue what we've been doing up until August as we finish out the community in order that this particular property is not prejudiced in relation to its other neighbors in where they're allowed to put the fence. This is a very small lot community, and as a result, just a small difference in where the fence is located makes a very big difference in the overall usable portion of the yard. The design that we put in Creekside at Colleyville included several outdoor patios, and in this particular case, the outdoor patio is going to be sitting on the outside corner of the house. Had we known going into this point that we would not be allowed to extend these fences, we probably wouldn't have designed these patios on the outside corners. We would have put them more in the center or on the inside corners because it really creates an unusual situation where you have a fence literally up against your patio. and is not a very usable or attractive way to put a fence. So I think the particular circumstances of this lot and the particular design of this home really warrant having a fence that exceeds the property line. I did bring one extra picture, but I don't know if, does this work today? Okay. Actually, two extra pictures. The first one. The first one shows on the far right corner, shows the property under construction where we're requesting the special use permit. Across the street, facing this property, is a home with the exact fence configuration we're asking for. So from a street scene standpoint, it would be very consistent to carry on the exact same configuration that we have across the street. This is again the house across the street from the subject. So basically, we're asking just to continue the application with these last few lots and finish out Creekside at Colleyville, gated community with the same kind of flavor and feel and design that we've had throughout the building of this community. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. God, I don't know, it's like something dry in my throat. Okay. I would like to open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. If there are any individuals that would like to come forward and speak on this item, please do so now. Seeing no one coming forward, I have no speaker cards other than the applicant. I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Okay, I would like to open discussion amongst my commissioners.
One question, when did the first corner lot house be built within Creekside? Like, how many years ago, how long ago was that?
Best guess, because I wasn't around then, would probably be around 2012. It's been quite a while. The Mainview was the last builder to come into Creekside, and the sections that were being built through by Village Builders were already, first two sections were already pretty extensively built out when we came in, so there would have been a number of corner lots in that section.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question while you're there.
Sure.
Okay, in looking at the exhibit that's currently on the screen, the approved wood fence location only extends, well, just to a small portion on the side of the house. On the corner side of the house, do you see the red? Where it goes in? Okay, so it stops back there. So why, if they're trying to increase the size of their yard by, which it sounds like is the object of what you're asking for.
Yes.
Then why are they wanting to bring it all the way to the front end of the house?
The wood fence there, it's kind of hard to tell because you can't really see the building layout from there. But the reason why the wood fence is where it is because there's an outdoor patio on that corner. And so it has to actually cover the patio. The patio would be open to the side. So the wood fence has to cover the patio. But it can't go any further than that because it would be too close to the building and you'd never get grass to grow and you wouldn't be able to maintain the side of the building. So if you stayed all along the build line on that wood fence, even though technically you would be permitted to do that, we could have done that. We could have stretched that wood fence all the way along. It would have created an unworkable situation where the homeowner wouldn't have enough room to actually squeeze in back there and maintain the yard.
Okay, so that patio is on the side yard, actually.
The patio is, it's the upper right corner of the building pad. The patio is that corner there. So it's in It has an opening to the side and an opening to the back.
Okay, okay. Okay,
And although we technically could have extended that wood fence all the way down that build line, it just would have been
Wouldn't make
totally impractical because there wouldn't be enough room.
Anyone else have any questions? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, any more discussion amongst us?
Well, we've talked about it during the work session, and, you know, let's see, for me, if this is a brand-new subdivision, and we're, you know, starting this after the land development code was changed, then I would vote no, but I do think continuity of, you know, properties looking somewhat similar in a planned community like this, especially a gated community like this, matters to me. And so this is an area where I do think, you know, we need to be kind of consistent on what happened, what's allowed for the whole subdivision. Because otherwise you're gonna have houses where we did approve it, maybe before last August, and now it's not approved. And that creates differences that I don't think are as appealing. So when it comes to Creekside, because so much of it has already been built and so many houses have been allowed to have these iron fences for corner lots in the side yard, you know, I think this is where the variance is warranted. So for me, I think for Creekside, these should be looked at as a whole, as we talked about. Doing each one individually creates issues because some might get approved, some might not, which is kind of, you know, creates issues to me as well. So I am for approving these and/or having city council look at this as a whole, as we kind of talked about, and saying, okay, for Creekside, you know, you can do a special an SUP or whatever to have it all consistent. But if it was another area or a brand-new subdivision and there wasn't already houses that already had this set up, I would vote no, but because it is, I think it does warrant to be allowed.
Did I understand that there were just 22 lots left, or did I misunderstand?
That's correct. But let me make sure I'm saying that correctly. There's 22 starts left. So there's 22 vacant lots that don't have a home started yet on.
How many of those are corner lots?
Oh, I think there's only total of 9 corner lots.
9 corner lots. So we're looking at 9 more similar requests, probably.
9 requests, and probably, I know one of these is, here tonight, is an existing homeowner who would like to have their fence on the.
And the plans for the homes would not be modified to relocate that patio?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, the land development and product development are probably the 2 most expensive and time-consuming things we do in the building industry. So redeveloping all those plans would literally be.
So, okay, so the
Work the
22
last 22.
starts, I'm sorry, so the 22 starts that are left are all in one section? You said there were two different sections, but the 22 that are left are all in one section?
They're all in Creekside Phase 3, which is, encompasses Mainview's lots and another builder, Tradition Homes, who also has a few of these applications before you.
Okay, so how many of the completed lots in this phase already have the fences?
Jackie, do we have that exhibit? Yeah, let me just walk you through an exhibit and I'll show you.
Like how many, yeah, I want to know how many have already been approved like this. Actually, they wouldn't have to be approved because the code was changed, but how many corner lots we have in the that currently exist like this?
I believe there were 4. I prepared an exhibit where I kind of color-coded these, and I can walk you through that hopefully will answer your questions.
So if we didn't approve it, there would be 9 that would be consistent.
In this section.
In this section. But the other section, it doesn't matter in the other section. This is just one part of the development. So You don't have to have consistency. You could have 9.
Claudia, I don't think we're going to be able to hear you through the microphone.
I'm sorry. Okay, I want to go ahead and give you an opportunity to answer my question.
Okay, so before you, this is Creekside Phase 3. The other sections of Creekside are basically built out. This is the only one that's really still under construction. The other sections of Creekside are finished, and I think they just have a few sales left of completed homes. So they're not really starting new homes. They don't have any vacant lots. So really, we're just talking about Phase 3 at this point. So Phase 3 has the homes the subject that I'm here about tonight is this one right here.
Okay.
And the home across the street from it is one that I showed you the picture that has the metal fence down near the sidewalk.
And does that, on that one that we just saw, that you were just pointing to, does that fence extend all the way to the front of the house?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't tell from the
10
photo.
I think it's 10 feet back. Our
Okay.
requirement requires the
Okay.
fences be offset 10 feet.
Okay,
These 2 lots are owned by Tradition Homes, and he has SUPs filed as well. And,
okay. Mhm.
These 2 homes right here are also owned by Tradition Homes, and he has SUPs on those. This
That have not been approved.
This one is, we've been through P&Z, we're before council now. We just had the first reading this last council meeting.
So, and you're a part of Tradition Homes as well?
I'm part of Mainview.
Okay.
Mainview actually sold these lots to Tradition.
I see.
This lot is a Mainview home that has the fence extended into the side yard.
Okay,
This lot is a home under construction that would be is also an SUP request that we will file because we want to just continue this one right along the line. This one is Tradition Homes has an SUP request for this one.
mm-hmm.
These 2 are existing homes that have their fences that are on I believe this one's on a retaining wall, this one's not. I don't believe these encroach.
Those are both wood fences at the building setback.
At the building setback line,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so the green is wood at the
yellow-
building setback. The gray is a wrought iron within the setback. And then the yellows are in some stage of construction right now. And I think the only ones we have SUPs on file are the ones I have marked with the star.
Okay. This one here is an older one that does have the fencing on it.
Yeah, but that one is a little different. It's orange indicating that there is a subdivision wall that they are taking advantage of. But it was built as the first phase of the overall subdivision, a solid wall.
This one has that same condition. It has a solid wall that is off the build line.
Is that one under construction?
This one is not yet under construction.
I don't think that one has anything on it
It
right
has
now.
a subdivision wall that comes along.
Oh,
the
okay,
side.
then I must have missed that.
And then this one here is the other case I'm here on tonight. And this one actually has a subdivision wall on the back side of it, and I'm just asking to tie into the subdivision wall on the other side. And I'll get to that one, I guess, when I'm here to present that one. But so that kind of shows you what the status is of all the corner lots in Creekside.
So, here's what I'm thinking. This is just one section of Creekside.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't really have to consider what the other sections have done. So if we're looking at continuity, and we have four, how many existing,
I think the gray are the ones that are
These
existing.
two exist.
those are the ones with the existing fences that you are wanting to model? Okay. So if we were to stick to our code, then those would be the exception. So you'd only have 2 that would be the exception, and the rest of them would all be the same.
There's
So that's continuity. I don't know if I'm making sense to you or not.
Yeah, no, I guess for us, a lot comes in the way we've marketed the community too. Up until the code was changed, we had explicit authorization. We had a letter from the city explaining where and how we could put these fences. And that's really how the community's been marketed as a whole. Homeowners had the choice to either move it out to the build line, in which case they would have to do an open fence, or they could stick to the build line, in which case they could only have wood. So all of the people in this community made a choice, if they were on a corner lot, of whether they wanted the privacy and therefore a smaller yard, or they wanted the larger yard and they were willing to compromise and have the open fencing. So the representation has been consistent throughout the life of this community. The fact that several chose to go with the privacy fencing versus putting it out on the build line still doesn't change the expectation that should they sell the house or market the house or change or decide on their own that they wanted to put in a pool or something and move that fence out, they all were buying these homes with the expectation that they would be able to do that. So that's always been the way the community was marketed, is you had an either or choice. You could accept privacy and a smaller yard, or you could have the open fencing and a larger yard. So in that sense is what I mean about consistently. We've consistently marketed the community always is that way, and many people did choose privacy.
And just to clarify, the two gray squares, the one at the top, do they have the wrought iron that's, and then the one at the bottom, is that wrought iron as well, or do they have okay.
Yeah, the green ones are the ones that have the wood at the fence line, the property line, sorry.
So the green ones are technically in compliance?
Yeah.
The gray ones have SUPs?
Yes.
No, no. 'cause
They weren't.
No.
They were built before the code changed.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
so
we're
if we-
not trying, so I think what we're looking at is we're trying to have some kind of continuity in agreement with those two gray ones.
But I guess that's what I was clarifying too, is we didn't give any exceptions to those two gray ones.
No,
It was just
we
a
didn't.
different, yes,
That's
okay.
right.
So we haven't done that yet. We haven't given anyone an exception in this phase.
No.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you. So, okay. That diagram was really, really helpful and very clear. So, thank you for you and for both of you collaborating, because it showed me, and I think Claudia too, that what we're looking at is one section of this community that has a couple of properties that have their fencing one way, but with the changes to the code, I mean, there's a reason why we agreed to the changes in the code, so the modifications.
But what are those reasons? I mean, because,
Well, you can, the changes to the code on that.
why were those changes made?
Well, it wasn't really for, I think there's a misunderstanding that it was for safety on public streets. That's not exactly what it is. I mean,
That's
I
what I'm
think,
asking.
yeah. It's really for, to maintain the integrity of the communities, the different communities, and also provide a standard for our fencing regulations. Ben, do you have anything else to add on that?
I don't.
Yeah, so,
Well, if that's the case, I think the standard has been set for this neighborhood already, and so again, I think it's fine, given this neighborhood, the way it's already been set up. If it was a new neighborhood, I would vote against it, but it's not. The standard's already been set, people have been told this is their options. The vast majority of this subdivision was built before the land development code was changed, so that's my opinion.
anyone else want to express opinions or ask questions?
I saw the pole on property line, so they already started before getting the permit? They started the work there? I saw in the presentation. There was,
Well, not on this specific lot. I think on,
I saw this.
from the last meeting, there was an additional property asking for, it's actually
So
3501.
this is not the correct property that I'm seeing picture here?
Right, that is across the street. And even the lot to the north of the one directly across the street, which was at the last Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
Okay, I believe it's the subject
Yes,
property.
so-
Okay.
Yeah, you did see those posts before, but it's not on the one that we're considering right now. It was from last meeting. Yeah.
Anyone else have any comments?
I tend to agree with Matt. I think when things change midstream and you already have something going on that was approved, and then, you know, now to make it incongruent with the other homes doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Okay. Does everyone feel like they have enough information to, for someone to request a motion? And if so, or if not, please let me know. And if so, I would like to request a motion. So if someone could put forth a motion on this case number ZC 20-013, that'd be great.
So I will go ahead and make a case to, make a motion to approve ZC 20-013.
Okay, do I have a second?
A second.
Okay. All right.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Madam Chairman, before we vote, I did want to ask, did you intend to discuss the possibility of the amendment to the PUD? Did you, or a potential amendment to the PUD, did you intend to discuss that?
To which PUD?
To the PUD for this development? Remember, we talked about it in our pre-council meeting?
Yes, but that was more something that I think that we would have city council address. That was a
Okay.
suggestion to move it forward, if they wanted to address that.
Okay, I'm sorry, I understood you to say at that point that you wanted to,
No, I don't think, I
Okay.
think, yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, excuse me.
Oh, that's okay. Okay, so we have a motion to approve case number ZC 20-013, which has been seconded. So I'm going to call for a vote. Commissioner Said,
Nay.
Commissioner Holt,
Aye.
Commissioner Mattison votes nay, Commissioner Cook,
Aye.
Commissioner Bevel,
Nay?
Commissioner Bond.
Aye.
Okay, here we are. We're tied. Okay, so this is a tie vote.
Because they need four.
Need 4 votes, so
Right.
it's
Denied.
So it does not
So,
receive
because it-
4
yeah.
affirmative votes, so the motion fails,
Fails.
which is
yes.
the same as a
Which-
denial.
Yeah, right, which is what I was gonna say, because, I mean, it's because we have more than 4, it's not really an issue where we would need to table it. So the motion has been denied. Or failed, sorry. All right, so we will move on to the next item. Item number 3D, consideration of a special use permit for a fence to extend, I'm going to read here instead of my notes here. Consideration of a special use permit for a fence to extend into the required street side yard on Lot 54, Block 5, Creekside at Colleyville, located at 3913 Lambrusco Lane, case number ZC 20-014. Okay, would like to present this one?
Okay, so this lot is located in the Creekside at Colleyville subdivision. It's located off the Valmer Avenue and Silverwood Lane. It has the PUDR zoning, and it is residential in nature, and you can see the lot there. It does have the subdivision wall, you can kind of see that along the Silverwood Lane side. And then those trees are along the land group. Make sure I'm in the right place. Valmer, thank you, Valmer Avenue. Some history, so an informational letter was given from staff identifying the fence regulations at the time. In August of 2019, the Land Development Code was changed. There was a building permit for a new home submitted and approved at 3913 Lambrusco Lane. And then in June of this year, an SUP application was submitted. They are requesting a 5-foot iron rod fence to encroach into the street side yard setback for a corner lot. Here are the regulations from the Land Development Code. And you can see here, again in the red is where an approved wood fence location would be. They are requesting the area in green for an iron fence. And in this case, on this slide, it would leave 10 feet between the fence location and the sidewalk. And these were photos taken by the applicant to kind of show you where that build line is and then where the proposed fence location to tie into that existing subdivision wall. And again, this is just an example of another property in the subdivision that shows that 5-foot iron rod fence. And here are some photos that staff took to kind of give you an idea of the lot and the layout. So any request for a building permit for a fence or wall which does not meet this criteria shall only be authorized after approval of a special use permit by the city council. Staff did not receive any correspondence, and staff does recommend denial as it does not meet the technical requirements of the Land Development Code.
Thank you. I would like to invite the applicant to come forward if you'd like to speak on this case. And just as a reminder, to please submit your name and address for the public record.
Cheryl Turner, and my address is 5835 Shoreside Bend, Irving, Texas, 75039.
Thank you.
So this particular request is slightly different. This particular property actually has an existing community wall that runs from the entrance of Creekside of Colleyville through the back of this property. And initially, that community wall actually turned the corner and went down the side of this property. Because of the location of that community wall, we could not actually get equipment onto the property to build the house. So it had a wall in the place we're actually requesting to put a wall back. In this case, it had formerly it was a brick wall. We're just asking for open fencing. And the brick wall had to come down in order for us to be able to get scaffolding and access the site. So the open fencing we're requesting would run along the side of the property and terminate about 10 feet back from the front. It would be in the same position as the wood fence would have been if the wood fence had been placed on this property, but just about 5 feet out from where the wood fence would have been. We believe that in this particular case, if we don't put the fence here, you're going to create a very unsightly issue with kind of a hanging wing wall. The community fence really is designed, you can see in the pictures, if Jackie can go back one, yeah. If you can see the picture on the left there, you can see where it's almost kind of an open cavity. It's actually designed to have something terminate into it. It's designed to have a wall or a fence or something terminate into it. Without that, you're just going to have kind of a weird hanging wall on this property that really won't have any even corner support or anything. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to leave it like that. But that is a permitted and approved community wall, so we can't take it down or remove it. We need to work with it as it is. So we're suggesting that we just simply connect into that community wall and bring it up the side of the property to finish it off. That's it.
Any questions for the applicant on this one?
And you're asking for wrought iron?
Yes.
Before you take your seat, are there other similar issues on those other properties you showed us that are not built out yet? Where there is a community wall that will need to have an extended proposed fence location?
I don't think that any of the others were as tight as this lot. The Tradition Homes has one that might be similar, but they have a little bit more room. I think they can actually fit scaffolding there. We just couldn't even fit scaffolding on this lot. We had to take it down in order to be able to build the side of the house.
Those small lot developments create all kinds of problems like this.
They're challenging.
Yes, for
And,
sure.
They get more challenging as time goes on when they fill in, and now you might have a situation where you're building between two existing homeowners.
Can't get in there.
So it can be challenging. But in this particular case, we felt the best thing to do is just remove the wall and go back in with a metal fence. We thought it'd be more attractive and more open on the side.
And when was the fence taken down?
The fence was taken down, it's probably been 5-6 months ago that we took the fence down.
And it was a wood fence?
No, it was actually
the
a
wall?
stone thin wall.
Okay.
But it was, I think when the city came out, they said it wasn't on the city's master plan. So it wasn't on the community wall plan. So we're not really sure how it came about, honestly.
So did you take it down to access the lot, or did you take it
Yes.
down because the city said,
No, we took it down to access the lot.
okay?
Yeah. And then, just given the whole look of the rest of the community, it didn't make sense to go back with stone. Everything else on the corners was wrought iron, so it made more sense to go back with wrought iron.
And what's to the left of the proposed wrought iron fence?
Where
What
you
is
see the
that?
trees there, is that what
I
you're
see a
talking
tree.
about?
Uh-huh.
Those are just trees that are on the property. There's
They go all the
four-
way back to the wall?
Yeah, they run along the side of the property. And normally you would think that those are common area trees, but they're actually, because of the unique way that Creekside at Colleyville was designed, the owners actually own everything down to the street. So this is actually those trees are on the owner's property.
And so the wrought iron fence would be on the inside of the trees?
The trees would be on the outside of the wrought iron fence, not inside the property. We just wanted to keep them as part of the streetscape and the common streetscape. And in Creekside at Colleyville, we have common area maintenance that maintains all the common areas, and we also have front yard maintenance that maintains all the front yards. So if we left them outside the wrought iron, it ensured that they would be maintained.
So that's a little area there, and then there's a road. That's the entrance, is that what you were saying?
The layout, let's see. Can you show her the layout?
Yep, there it is.
Yeah, here you go.
I guess that one kind
It
of
actually
blurs.
has the fence, the
Mm-hmm.
Looks like the old one is still
old
on there.
fence is still
Front
there.
yard.
Yeah.
Okay, I see, okay.
They were on the inside, but now they're going to be on the outside, is that correct?
No, the trees were on the outside of the fence
They
all
still,
along.
are there too.
Oh, that's okay, I see the fence.
See where that existing
yes.
wall is down the side where the trees are? So that would just be wrought iron instead of
Right,
masonry.
right. We
whatever
would just
that
go
is.
back with wrought iron. The masonry always felt a little disconnected there because it was kind of imposing. There's nothing else, there's no other masonry walls along that street. And so it seemed a little imposing on the street.
But that's the main,
The main is actually behind that lot. So the
right.
the main entrance to the community kind of where that T is. Okay, there, you can see it better.
Yeah, so
Silverwood Lane
that's
is
why
the
the
main
wall's
entrance.
there.
Yeah, that's why the wall is there. We really don't know why the wall was carried around to the side,
Belmer, but-
because there really aren't any other walls on Valmer, so it it previously looked kind of strange to have a big imposing wall there.
That's helpful, thank you.
Mhm. Anything else?
Thank you. Okay. All right, I'd like to open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. I think the only card I have on this item is from the applicant herself. So if anyone would like to come forward and speak on this item, please do so now. Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Okay. I would like to open up our discussion. If anyone has any comments or things they would like to share, I mean, it's a little bit different situation, but,
It's a unique case.
I'm sorry?
It's a unique case as compared to others.
Yeah, it's unique for sure.
So I do have a question. If you were to put the wrought iron fence in there, is this property currently for sale, or is there an owner here? You all are the owners?
Maybe he still owns it, it has not been sold yet.
It's not been sold. Would and I don't know, maybe this is a question for Ben, or it may be a question for you, but would the homeowner, if they were to purchase that home, wanted privacy in their backyard, would they still put a fence inside the wrought iron fence, Ben? Is that,
They
like
could,
wood
but it
fence.
would have to be at that setback line.
well,
So,
they'd lose a little bit of yard, but they would gain privacy, but wouldn't that be weird?
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's very true. I also think it's weird to have that, portion of the stone fence just kind of hanging out there outside of the fence, outside.
Well, but if there's, yeah, it would be, but, I mean, because the house is not currently owned, if the owner wanted to put a, wood fence, he would have to put it in that place. So that, I mean,
And then you would have this weird area, is that
then,
what you're saying?
yes.
And
you
a
would
wrought
have-
iron, a weird
and
area,
it would
and
almost
wood.
be difficult to maintain that.
Or if it's not owned by anyone, you'll not buy it. That's the only option.
Well, I mean, somebody's gonna buy it. But my question
Hope so.
is, if they want privacy and they have to put a wood fence there, it would make more sense to have that little brick overhang than it would make sense to have two fences. I don't guess we can predict what the owner's gonna do. Okay. And I don't disagree with you, that having that, if they put a fence in there.
I think, Ben, wouldn't they need to get a permit if they put a fence in there? So
right, they would have to get a
addressed at that
permit.
time.
And as long as it's on that 15-foot build line, it would be approved.
See, that's the problem. If they wanted privacy, then you've got two fences in an area that is so small it can scarcely be maintained.
I wonder if you couldn't, on that little, so let's just say that you put the wood fence on the build line, that little piece of wall that's sticking out there, if you couldn't just build some kind of an end cap or something on that to make it look more intentional,
Yes.
rather than just this wall that abruptly ends,
I
like
agree. I completely agree.
Yes, and
I
then
don't know what the proper term is, but, and maybe even it has a light on top of it, but just like that completes that
Almost like
wall.
Like a pillar?
Post, a column
pillar,
post.
yes,
Yeah.
a post. a
Okay,
pillar.
but this is a question also. So do you all provide the fences for the homes?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so that's included. When they buy the home, they decide what fence they want.
Right,
Is that correct?
right.
Okay.
Now, this home is being built as a spec home. So we've decided where we think it's most marketable, and that's where we're putting it. We kind of make the decisions when we go in our spec homes, we make the decision as to whether the characteristics of that lot would benefit by a wood fence or would benefit by an open fence.
Okay, so you're thinking they're not going to ask to put a fence?
No, you would have no yard if you put a wood fence there.
Okay. Was just a thought. I mean, if they wanted privacy.
It has been our general experience that given the choice, people prefer the space and they'll screen with bushes or other things because once you narrow that down to just that wood fence on the build line, most communities, your fence can go on your property line. In Colleyville, in this situation, under this new provision, it has to go on the build line, which means it's running tandem to your house, and you lose all side yard.
Well,
It really cuts down the amount of yard and makes it almost impossible to put a pool or put anything back there, really.
But people who buy in small lot developments generally don't want any yard. That's why they're buying there.
We haven't found that to be true.
No?
I mean, they like the fact that they can have the smaller lot living, but the first lots to go are always the biggest lots.
Oh.
So the premium lots, the lots that have extra space, oversized lots, are always the first lots to sell.
Okay.
While people are choosing to live in a community where there's low maintenance and everything, they still want enough space to be able to, we have mini pools out there, if you can believe it, in these small lots. There's literally hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of outdoor kitchens and hardscape and things that the people are putting in these yards, so.
Well, these are larger two-story homes. They're filled with families.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It was just a thought I had, if they wanted privacy. But, okay, I'm good.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments or things that you want to bring forward? I mean, I'm still, honestly, I'm still with staff on this. It doesn't meet the land development code that we have. So I'm of the notion to agree with staff on this one.
But I will say, though, I think, and I'm not speaking for staff, everything I said, because it does not meet the technical definition. That's why we're here, though. We're here because of things like this. If we just stuck to everything in the land development code as is, there would be no need for us even to be sitting here. So there are, to me, situations where logically it'll make sense to allow it. And logically may not be the right word. But I don't, having that brick wall in the back kind of extend out beyond the fence is more of an eyesore than a metal fence along the line of it. And so what's worse? And I think we have to take that into consideration when voting, even though it's outside the technical definition of the land development code.
I agree, because you can make a situation where nobody wants that house, because that's a weird little strip down the side and there's no way around it, and it just doesn't really make sense with what's going on in the neighborhood.
I'm not one to, excuse me, I'm not one to just wholeheartedly embrace variances to our code, but in this situation, I can see why that would be helpful to the development of this lot and to the aesthetics of the area. So as much as I am compelled to stick to the code, I think this case maybe is a little different.
And I would think it's better than the stone wall that was there, which would have been there if they could have built a house.
All right. Any more discussion? If not, I'm going to request a motion.
I make motion to approve case ZC 20-014.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve case number ZC 20-014. Commissioner Said,
Aye.
Commissioner Holt.
Aye.
Commissioner Matheson votes nay. Commissioner Cook.
Aye.
Commissioner Bevel.
Aye.
Commissioner Bond.
Aye.
Okay. Motion is granted. Okay. All right, we are moving on to our next public hearing item, which is item number 3E, consideration of a special use permit for a fence to extend into the required street yard on Lot 3, Block 7, Creekside at Colleyville, located at 3509 Belmure Avenue, case number ZC 20-016. Okay.
Okay, I think we know where this community is. It's the Creekside Colleyville subdivision. And this is off of Valmer Avenue and Briscoe Lane here. It has the PUDR zoning. It's residential. I'm going a little fast because we know where we are now. Quick history, September 2017, a building permit was issued for the home. February 2019, home construction is completed. August of 2019, the Land Development Code was amended, and in June of 2020, an SUP application was submitted. This request is different because what they're looking to do is basically place a 6-foot wood fence on the retaining wall to encroach in the street side yard setback for a corner lot. This is the Land Development Code language. This is the site exhibit, and you can actually see, I've got a really good drawing after this, but what they're looking to do is push out the existing wood fence that they have a few extra feet there. There will be 10 feet between the fence and the sidewalk. They are not looking to go the entire length of the street corner side yard. So the extent, you can actually see it here, the extent of the fence will be where those two yellow lines are. That's the extent that they'd like to push it out. So then this fence would then sit on top of that retaining wall that's existing. And these are some really good photos by the applicant kind of showing you what that would look like. And in red here, you can kind of see it up close too. They just want to push that out right there. It's about, what had been?
I don't remember. Yeah, that's 5 feet.
About 5 feet. And this is how it exists today. And you can see that that kind of grade difference a little bit between the existing retaining wall and then the grass and then the sidewalk. So any request that's different is required to be authorized authorized for approval by a special use permit by the city council. We receive no letters. Staff does recommend denial as it does not meet the technical requirements of the Land Development Code, and I know that the property owners are here tonight.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions of staff?
I have a question. How high is the retaining wall?
I don't have the specific numbers, but it would not be taller than 4 feet. I do not believe it went through an engineering review for it. You can see it does get a little bit taller as you go towards the back of the property, but that's probably 3 feet to 3.5 feet is what I would estimate.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions for staff? Nope. Okay. I would like to invite you to come forward on this item. And if you can, please state your name and address for the public record, please.
My name is Amish Patel, and I live at 3549 Belmore Avenue in Colleyville.
Okay, thank you.
So what I have requested is just to bring that fence to the retaining wall, which is about 2-3 feet. And right now, as the retaining wall, the fence is sitting is right in on the patio. It's about 6 inches from where the patio is. So, of course, I mean, there were pictures. I don't know if I send you real picture. Will I be able to show from here?
She's from patio.
I mean, there's a gas line as well, but we cannot use that patio for outdoor kitchen because of the fire hazard as well. And the reason we are requesting to extend that fence is just 2 to 3 feet to the retaining wall. There are 3 homes sitting right across from me, and they can literally see my backyard and into my house, into my kitchen and living room and everything. It's all exposed.
Why is it exposed?
No, if,
Because there's a house across the street.
across right there, those house.
But if you push the fence back,
That's what I'm requesting for the wooden fence, that fence to be. I know it's, the clear fence is already approved all the way into the sidewalk at the bottom. And again, my yard is very, very little. I only have 10 feet backyard. Can't do anything much besides just put a swing in the backyard. So pushing that fence would help us, give us some breathing room there. And we don't want to extend all the way, we just want to continue on little bit it is.
Okay. But still maintain the wood.
Yeah, yes.
So how would that give you additional privacy from the house?
No, it's not about, I'm not talking about privacy, it'll give us an additional room. Right now, we can't even, you see the gas tank there, but we cannot even do a kitchen there if we want to. Because it's literally 6 inches.
Do you plan to build a kitchen, an outdoor kitchen there?
In future, yeah, subject to, yeah.
Okay, anyone else have questions for the applicant? No? Okay, thank you very much.
I have one question, sorry, I just saw it here. There's obviously, I think I already asked this before, but there's holes in the masonry that look like they're for a fence. Were those already there?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do those go all the way up the
Yeah,
entire?
all the way to the retaining wall, that is, yeah.
To the front, the
Yes,
very
sir.
front yard, all the way to back?
Yes,
Those
sir.
holes are there? Okay, thank you.
so I'm sorry, did you guys choose to take, was that wrought iron and you guys chose to take that out and put in the wood for
No,
privacy?
this was how it was, I mean, no.
No, he said it was approved with the wrought iron.
I think
All
it's
the way-
already approved, right, in the, as far as I know.
But there wasn't a wrought iron fence there?
No,
Okay.
this is the only.
Okay.
To clarify, the decision was made to have a solid fence, and so it had to be put at the build line.
Yes, okay.
At the time the house was completed, it did authorize a wrought iron fence within that setback area, although that has since changed with that August 2019 amendment. So the wrought iron is no longer authorized, but in this case, they're still wishing to maintain the wood fence out to the wrought iron, or I'm sorry, to the retaining wall.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
What is the distance between the existing fence and the retaining wall?
I think it's
It's
about
5 feet.
3 feet, 2 to 3 feet, I measured today.
Well, based on the exhibit and what, I believe it's a 5-foot
Okay.
distance.
Okay.
So it'd be at a 10-foot setback from the property line.
So not from the outside of the retaining wall, the inside of the retaining wall, that's 5 feet?
It doesn't
Like-
look,
Well,
Looks like
Yes.
it.
I'm not exactly sure where in relation to the inside or outside of the retaining wall, but the retaining wall is at the 10-foot.
It looks
Build
more
line.
3 feet than 5 feet.
It's 3 feet, I measured today, but I might be wrong.
It looks like it's 3 feet from the wood fence to
Yes,
the retaining wall.
To the,
look
To-
at,
okay.
to
look
the-
at the arrow.
to the inside of the retaining?
The
See the
the
red
grassy
arrow?
area?
Yeah.
And if you move that area, that's my observation, 4 feet away, you can harm yourself if you fell down.
Yeah, how do you mow that right now?
Sorry?
How do you mow that section of grass right now?
That's HOA, so they take
Oh,
care
they
of that
take
side,
care
so.
of
Oh, your HOA take care of your yard?
Not the backyard, I mean on the sides and all that.
They
So
do
it's-
the
again, it's
public.
They do that, okay.
Mhm.
That's-
Okay.
Are there other,
I
are
was
there,
just going to ask the same thing.
Okay, are there other retaining walls where the fences have been extended out to within your area that you're familiar with?
So I just saw those exhibits that were displayed, I think, a couple of presentations ago, those gray spots in the Creekside subdivision. They have wooden fence all the way on the retaining wall.
Oh,
No, and that's not, it's not gray, it would be green. The green.
Well,
What is gray? Oh, well, sorry, green, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
actually wasn't, we know of one situation, but not in this farthest southern area, that does have a wood fence on the retaining wall,
Okay.
but it's further north in a different section.
Mhm.
And so we didn't have a picture of that for you this time, but it was presented at our last meeting, if you remember, because,
they were wanting that
yeah, that's right. And so that
8-foot
one
fence
example
on a
is further
3-foot.
north,
Mhm.
in a different phase. So that's the only one that we are aware of,
Okay, so,
with a wood fence on the retaining wall.
okay.
Okay.
And this is only till whatever is existing. I'm not going to extend. It's just stretching out a little further, just,
You're not coming up to the front.
no, only this much, only till it covers patio.
Yeah.
So what is the length of that fence that would be on the retaining wall?
10 feet.
I don't know.
Don't know, okay.
Yeah, it'd be no more than maybe 15 feet.
Mhm.
It's,
Okay. Okay, anyone else have any questions for the applicant?
Is there a house behind you yet? Or is
no,
that
there's an empty lot.
empty lot? So they're gonna probably wanna do the same thing to match you.
It would make more sense because that covers the patio as well as, there is some breathing room. Right now it's 6 inches, you have a patio and a fan sitting right in front of your face.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that kind of is important, kind of, I think, understand, is the lot behind that is, how high is that retaining wall? Is it the same, or is it get a little higher, or?
It looks about the same if you look at the shadow.
Looks same.
It's hard to tell, but yeah, I would agree just by looking at that, but do you know? Ben?
I think it's pretty much same.
Yeah, so they would have to come forward with a special use permit.
No, yeah, my question is how high, and the lot
Oh.
behind them, how high is the retaining wall? Is it
Yeah.
like the same as theirs, or does it?
Yeah,
It
it
looks
actually is very
consistent.
similar. I think the tallest point is at where the two lots meet.
Yeah.
And I actually do have a measurement on the side exhibit, and so it's 3.6 feet at that corner,
Okay.
but then
That's
it
the highest.
goes lower, it gets shorter as you go up towards the front of each lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
That's what I want to know.
so this fence was here when you bought the property, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Did you build this house new?
Yes and no.
Did you have an option on the fence?
No, at that point I did not know.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? No, thank you so much. Um, What was staff's recommendation on this one?
Deny.
Denial based on not meeting the technical requirements.
Okay. So you want to, well, let me open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. I do have one card, and it's from Ms. Turner. Would you like to come forward and speak on this one?
Yeah, I think the.
If I can just remind you to please, it's a different case number.
Turner, 5835 Shoreside Bend, Irving, Texas, 75039. The applicant's correct on the size. It is a very small splotch. It's definitely less than 5 feet. When we measure on the plot plans, it probably shows somewhere at or near 5 feet, but that's to the bottom of the wall. And the walls are canted inwards, so by the time you get up to the top, you always lose space. So the portion that he actually has to maintain or has to be maintained is very small. The other part that I might offer, just from having built and developed in Creekside, is that the walls that are in here are all part of the engineered walls that were the walls and the systems, the grading and plans were all part of the grading plans that were submitted to the city when we came to the city to approve this community. And in connection with that, all of the walls, retaining walls, were cored and pre-cored for having fences on them. So I believe that shows that it was the intent all along for these fences to sit on the retaining walls. Every one of these fences, including the ones on this homeowner's lot, are cored for a fence to be on there. So just adding a little color.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, I will, if no one else wishes to come forward to speak on this item, I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Okay, all right, guys.
I want to, maybe it's not a fair question to ask, and if they don't want to answer it, fine, but for staff, I mean, when you make a recommendation, it's always based on the black and white technical aspects of the land development code.
I think I can agree with that. I mean, we look at adjacent properties, we look at the property itself, but we also take into account the recent decisions made by the city council and any changes to the land development code. This is a very recent change. It was a change that was asked for by the city council. And so our recommendation at this time is, without really knowing, I'll just say that these are the first cases to come forward since that change, and so I don't want to presume anything with the city council, and so just based on what it says in the land development code, that's the basis for our recommendation.
Okay.
Because I think we could all agree there's the number of requests for variance in this Creekside development.
Yeah.
Quite a large number.
Yeah. And as you saw, potential for several more.
But I also understand that we're towards the end of the build-out on this community.
That's right. Really, these vacant lots you saw in those aerial photos that's really all that's left.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay, and that is still this couple's property. Did I understand that they own all the way to the street in this community? That their lots, they actually own all the way to the street?
I don't know if it's all the way to the curb, but it is very close to the curb. They have slightly smaller right-of-way areas, but then you have easements on either side to allow for the utilities and the sidewalks. And so it's a slightly different way than what you typically see, but with those easements, it functions the same as a public street would. The pavement itself meets our minimum design criteria for public streets. It's just the easements on either side to get that width for utilities and sidewalks.
Okay.
I do have a question with the property owner. I just saw in the photo.
Okay. If the applicant could please come forward. And if you don't mind repeating your name and address, sir.
Amish Patel, 3549 Welmer Avenue, Colleyville.
First of all, game show.
Hello.
The thing is, you have a backyard access from this area? I saw
Yes.
the lock.
It's on the side, ma'am.
It's on the side?
Yeah.
And if you put fence here on the retaining wall, then you have to step down 3.5 feet down.
No,
Do you have any plan to put anything there?
no, then the access will be on this side. We'll put it at the access on this side, right?
So you need to change the access
Yeah.
of it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, any other discussion or questions, comments? No. All right, with that, I would like to request a motion on this item.
I make motion to approve case ZC 20-016.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm just taking my notes. Okay, all right, so we have a motion to approve case number ZC 20-016. Commissioner Said?
Aye.
Let's see. Commissioner Holt?
Aye.
Commissioner Matthiessen votes nay. Commissioner Cook?
Aye.
Commissioner Bevel?
Nay.
Commissioner Bond?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The motion passes 4-2. Okay, thank you. All right, we have one more item for our agenda tonight. This is the last item, and I think this is pretty straightforward. Item number 3F, consideration of amendments to Chapter 2, Section 2.5, definitions, Chapter 3, Section 3.24B, schedule of permitted principal uses, and Chapter 3, Section 3.24.c, special land use standards of the Land Development Code, specifically for the inclusion of massage therapy as a land use and for regulations associated with the massage therapy use.
All right, so I'll be making this presentation. This is an amendment to add this as a use to the Land Development Code. There's been a few situations where there's been some enforcement issues, specifically with the types of uses coming in and how they are processed through our certificate of occupancy procedure. And so this is an attempt to be able to catalog those and also make sure that we're getting appropriate type uses within the city.
Okay.
And so first, in Chapter 2, that's our definitions chapter. We wanted to have definitions for these types of uses. This did go in front of the City Council for review, and so the highlighted areas are either for emphasis so that we can clearly identify the different types of uses, but then in the underline in red was additional language that was added after that discussion. And so you first have licensed massage therapy uses. This is what you would typically expect where, the business is licensed by the state and you go in for a massage and then you're on your way. And so, but all of the workers are licensed by the state of Texas to do massage therapy.
Sure.
The unlicensed still includes massage itself, but based on, it's not as much maybe a medical type use, but it's treated differently. It's not in relation to any type of injury or anything else. It's, just the unlicensed kind. And so this includes acupuncture, acupressure, reflexology, and other similar things. So it's also, I guess, more, for my mind, it's also, I guess, more specialized for different aspects of it. Now, in red and underlined, we did add that it would not include barbers, beauticians, and manicurists, where they might do a little bit just as kind of an ancillary service to what they're really doing, like cutting hair. I think they sometimes massage the scalp. So it would not include that. Or if you're getting your nails done and they're just massaging your hand, those are exempt from these requirements. And then a massage therapy establishment, that's just where you have multiple massage therapy licensed individuals in the same location. And we wanted to also specifically identify reflexology, which is your feet and ankles, and I think it's just feet and ankles only, no other parts of the body. All right. And so in our land, or permitted use chart, permitted principal use chart, we previously categorized these under our day spas. We didn't have any other listing to put them into a specific category. So we've added the massage therapy listing, both licensed and unlicensed. And for all of these uses, it would require a special use permit, and only in the CC1, CC2, and CC3 districts. And then 16, under special land use standards, the next slide will go over this. So here's the special regulations that would apply in addition to requiring the special use permit. And so, unless otherwise approved as part of a special use permit process, the following will apply. And the first is that they shall be located not less than 300 feet from another such establishment. We wanted to make sure that there was not a concentration. However, in discussion at the city council, there was an idea that where you have a shopping center with multiple buildings and maybe they aren't able to meet the 300-foot separation, then the exception would be you can have at least one in any individual building, even if they don't meet that 300 feet.
Yeah.
But they are still separated completely into a different building. And then in B, it's deemed a temporary permit in the sense that any change, whether it's the occupancy classification or use, or the occupant or business name or business owner, similar to what we've done with the liquor stores, where even if it's a change of ownership, change of name, they have to go through the special use permit process again.
Good.
And then finally, with the legal non-conforming uses or buildings, any that exist today are able to continue. However, similar to in B above, if there's any change to their business or an owner or a name, then they will have to go through the special use permit process at that time. And so it would not necessarily be a retroactive thing immediately. It's just only when they make changes to require the special use. I think those were the changes. In your packet, I did also provide the special use permit process just for reference. I think you guys are very familiar with that process, but it was there for your reference as well. Like I stated, this did go before the city council, and again, the red came out of that discussion. And based on that, then our recommendation is to approve these amendments. And with that, I can answer any questions.
Is a tenant considered the one who owns the business or the one who operates the business? I'm just wondering, because where it says in the B, where it says said permit shall be in effect as long as the current tenant at the time the approval was granted. So is the tenant the operator or is the tenant the owner? Because they could sell, if they sell it, then I would assume that would be a new tenant.
That's right.
But if they own it and they get a new operator, is that?
So
do you understand what
I think it's more operational, because if you look in the B where it says, said permit shall be in effect as long as the current tenant at the time the approval was granted operates, so it's the operator
current
within the location.
The tenant is not usually the owner. The tenant is the person occupying the space and running the business, and they lease it from the owner.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
Well, it starts to get a little confusing because you do have the building owner, but then you might have a business owner.
the business owner might get somebody else, just like this daycare center. The gentleman who owns it is not going to be running it. The other gentleman who was here with him will be running it.
Yeah.
So owner, operator, tenant, those terms, I think, need to be defined. I don't know, maybe I'm making, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know that we have many cases where they're different. although we do have multiple locations on our application for a certificate of occupancy to make sure that we try and vet all the different components to each use that comes in.
Well,
I
just,
don't recall that we
just the
have-
ongoing, if they have a permit, is it going to be ongoing if they get a new operator?
I'm going,
No, I mean, that's a good, if you sign a lease, say you own a building and they sign a lease, does the lease have to
The
change, or
owner
does
would be
whoever's
paying the,
The lease remains in effect.
but then if you have a different operator, the whole, I mean, what it says as long as the current tenant, so is the tenant the one who owns the business and pays the rent, or is the tenant the one that's operating for the owner? That's my question.
I think it's the latter. I think that's how we issue all of them.
Who's
If right, who is operating it? Because that's who we will be going to for any violations, even if they're not changing anything.
So how will we know when an owner gets a new operator? That's between.
Because the certificate of occupancy is issued to the operator, and so if there's a change in an operator, they would have to go through the certificate of occupancy again.
Okay, so the owner doesn't really have anything to do with the CO.
In that scenario.
like, for example?
I think that's, I think that's a pretty rare situation. I think most of them are owner-operators,
Yeah.
one in the same.
Well, it's just a technical question I had.
Yeah, so in that scenario, I think it would be the operator who we would issue the certificate of occupancy to, and not the owner, because they're the ones that are actually on site.
And actually occupying it.
Yeah, and actually occupying it. So if that operator changes, they would have to go through the process again.
Okay.
Any more questions of staff on this one? Okay, I am going to, as we're required to do, I'm going to open the public hearing. Seeing we are very socially distanced out there, I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Okay. Okay, so would anyone like to have additional discussions on this particular case number regarding the changes in the language definitions and et cetera? I think this is I think this probably came forward because some individuals probably wanted to start different types of businesses, which I think is great. I'm glad that we're defining this because I know that some surrounding cities had some pretty bad problems, especially like 6 years ago. There were some major issues. So I'm glad that we're defining it and taking care of this ahead of time. Anyone else have any comments, concerns? Nope. Well, with that, I would like to request a motion that, on this case number. It's not a case number, it's just an item, a consideration.
Well, I will make a motion that we approve item 3F. Then do I need to just read this paragraph, Ben?
You can just say as presented.
As presented, that we approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. We are voting to approve item number 3F as presented. Commissioner Said?
Aye.
Commissioner Holt?
Aye.
Commissioner Matheson votes aye. Commissioner Cook?
Aye.
Commissioner Bevel?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Aye.
All right, the item is approved. Thank you very much, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much for your patience, everyone, tonight.